Preparing to go live. Where's our live stream? Here we go. Okay, here we are. Okay, so we finally made it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. This is our 482nd GoldFish Report. We're getting close to 500, folks. Wonder what that's going to be. Today is Saturday, April 18th, 2020, and here we are. Sorry, we're late. But, you know, when we go live, there's all kinds of problems that happen. And unfortunately, James Gilliland has lost his internet and is not going to be able to join us. So we are going to continue and move forward. We have a really special, this is a continuation of our Uniting the Light series of roundtables where we're talking about, thank you, Audrey, we're talking about the Great Awakening. And we've got a really interesting group of people who are joining us. And I'm really glad that all of our viewers and all listening on Ascension Radio along with us, we're really glad that you joined us. We have today with us, of course, this is a joint production with Aaron from the Q Signal. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Louisa. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and of course, I'm going to introduce our wonderful guests. Of course, first, my co-host, Steve. Thanks for being here with me, Steve.
Hi, sorry, I was muted. Good to be here. Yeah.
And of course, Austin Steinbart. Austin, welcome back.
Thanks, Lisa. Great to be here.
And Audrey Ewis, Audrey's going to be on the panel today, and he's simulcasting on Ascension Radio. Thanks for being with us, Audrey.
Thank you so much for having me, everybody.
I also wanted to give a shout out to James Borg from UFOria Chronicles, who is in the live chat today. He's being moderator for us, and he's going to, and if anybody has, triggered by anything that we're going to say, James is going to ask you to leave or put you in timeout. So there is a warning here. I do want to warn folks, if you are concerned about people sharing views that are different from yours, or if they challenge your view of the world, and if that causes any kind of discomfort or cognitive dissonance or butt hurt, then I suggest you turn off the video now. We're trying to have an open discussion, and the purpose for this is to unite the community, unite everybody. And so we're not interested in division. And if you want to bring division to the live chat, you're going to be removed. So thank you all for joining us. And let me just get started with Aaron and say, Aaron, what inspired you to want to put this joint roundtable together today?
Well, I've noticed since I created my channel that this division, like how we've kind of talked about between like left and right or this and that. Well, what I've noticed is even since just making this channel, the division really does exist everywhere. And even within the same communities, you've got the group of people over here that talk about this and they talk about that, and there's a lot of different groups that just seem to have issues with other groups. And for me, I'm like, guys, we're in the fight of our lives here. We're fighting against this deep state cabal who want nothing but our destruction, and we don't have time. We don't have time to be messing around, pretending that we're not all on the same team. So I just, I reached out to you, Louisa, and I just thought, this roundtable idea would be such a good way to kind of start this off, and maybe down the future where some of those old beefs that people have had, we can kind of just crush those and move on from all of this, so we can really get this process moving along with everybody, the Great Awakening as we call it. So yeah, that's basically the main reason for all of this, is I really am all about the unity.
That's really wonderful, because Steve, isn't that always been a message that we've had on GoldFish Report, is always about uniting the light?
Absolutely. Look, we're all in this together. We're living on the same planet. There's no time for bickering, because if we fight amongst ourselves, how can we possibly defeat this group that's trying to destroy us? So hello, people, get together. Let's get together. Well done, Aaron. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah. Appreciate that.
So let me go right over to Austin. Austin, man, we're just wondering how the hell you're doing. We did hear from your Q Baby Plus YouTube channel interviews, you know, that you're calling in. So thanks for calling in, and that you've had some trouble, and we're kind of not surprised because we know, look, we're getting ready for these indictments. I mean, you know, Attorney General announced last week in his interview with Laura Ingraham that we're getting ready to, you know, reveal indictments, that Huber's job wasn't to simply write a report, but it was to issue indictments if there was evidence. And he clearly said there was evidence, you know, and really the evidence shows a collusion, massive collusion within the FBI, within the government, within the CIA, within the highest levels of our government, that show collusion to deny American citizens of their rights and to interfere and absolutely sabotage the U.S. presidency. And this is huge, Austin. I mean, this is on a scale that I don't think people can really imagine. But now, you know, you're kind of in the thick of it too with the FBI. So why don't you start off with explaining how you're doing and what's the latest with your situation?
Well, so for those of you that didn't hear, a couple weeks ago, I had some FBI agents come to the house and pretend they're concerned about my safety. So they came, I talked to them, kind of like told them what was up, what was going on. And they seemed fine at the time, didn't really ask me to do anything. They even followed up, called, and, you know, wanted to have coffee at a later date. And then about a week later, I woke up one morning to a SWAT team raiding my house, coming in, turning everything over, taking all my computers, taking all my guns, taking my phone. And I came to find out that I was being charged with extortion. So the FBI is saying, I made this video, or let me back up. I had these documents from WikiLeaks that was exposing some corruption on the part of the CIA. And I had curated them into this file sharing container that I called the Amorphous Archive. And the Amorphous Archive was hosted by this company called Datto. If you remember back in 2016, Datto is a company that took a bunch of money to lie on behalf of Hillary Clinton and pretend that they had lost all of her emails when they didn't. But so I had told all my followers when they took my stuff down on the service I was paying for, like, hey, let's all call Datto and demand this back, right? Because this is, you know, important information to be getting out to the public. And so when we did that, we, you know, obviously blocked up some of their email lines and their phone lines, right? Just kind of doing the activism 101 type of deal. And Datto made the case to the FBI that by making the calls that we were physically damaging their infrastructure, physically damaging the infrastructure of this gigantic, you know, multi-billion-dollar corporation, like one of the biggest names in IT. And so the FBI ran with that and came and raided my house, took my ability to communicate, my ability to defend myself. They threw me in this really gross private federal prison over in Florence, Arizona, by a company called CoreCivic. And CoreCivic is a subsidiary of a bigger corporation called Corporation of America. And so this company is called
Austin, we're going in and out. I'm sorry, you're going in and out in your internet connection. I don't know if you can get closer to
Let me, yeah, I don't have internet, so it's just on cell. How's this?
I'm sorry, I mean cell tower, yeah. I know it's spotty out there.
Does this sound better?
Yeah, that's better. Sorry about that.
So where did I cut off? I just want to make sure that
you were just saying that they did, you know, took away your right to defend yourself. They took your weapons. They took, I mean, for allegedly saying that you know, accusing you of extortion.
You're explaining about Datto, yep. What the connection was.
Yep. So they came in, used the SWAT team to terrify my wife and take all my things. And they took me and they threw me into a federal prison in Florence, Arizona, run by a company called CoreCivic. It's a private federal prison. And this company and a few others in Arizona, these giant private prison corporations, are were some of John McCain's best friends and top donors. They had this little racket for his whole career where he would make the sentencing laws tighter, and they would just keep raking in more money on the backs of all the low-level offenders that they were giving exorbitant sentences to. So they threw me over in this decrepit federal prison for 4 days. They didn't feed me at all for 3 of those days. And they just kind of like treated me like a serial killer. We had the, I don't know if you've ever seen the Hannibal movies. They threw me in one of those bird cages, which is like a 3x3 cell where you sit straight up. So for most of the day I spent in a bird cage, and then they threw me in, it's called the hole, which is essentially just like solitary. And they tried to play all these like hooky spooky games with me. Like there was a 33 written on the wall. There was a bunch of like trash and blood all over the place. And they even left a card in there that it was a Joker card with like the big red letters Maverick written over it. And Maverick was one of John McCain's call signs there.
Right.
So it's essentially them showing that, you know, there's still dark elements of our government in control and that they can get to anybody at any time. So them essentially trying to spook me out and silence me. And what they don't realize is that's just going to make me more determined to beat them. And I think that's just going to show everybody who I've been talking to exactly, who they are, right? The FBI at this point is not a legitimate law enforcement agency. It's more of a gangster mafia and a power structure. So, you know, by doing that, they essentially, by charging me with these federal crimes for essentially exercising my free speech, they are endangering everyone's free speech, right? Even not just the right wing or not just the Q people or not just UFO or whoever community. They're endangering every single community out there, including all the lefties, right? Because the lefties, their primary method of activism in a lot of cases, if you look at organizations like PETA, if you look at organizations like MoveOn.org, their primary mode of activism is calling out a company, an individual, an organization, and having all their people call and email them and get mad. So they're essentially trying to criminalize that sort of activism. And that's one of the reasons I'm starting to sharpen the rhetoric against the FBI. And it's just showing people, look, they don't care about any of our rights. They did the same thing to even the president, right? So the president gets elected. He's going to do stuff they don't like. So they just literally make up things out of thin air and try to frame him for treason, essentially, right? So they said collusion, but the way they were framing it was like, we're trying to make the case that our president is an agent of a hostile foreign power. And that's like one of the most serious things they could be charging, right? So if Donald Trump gets convicted, if Donald Trump goes down for that sort of high crime, they're essentially trying to throw him in jail for the rest of his life, or trying to, you could even get executed for treason. So in doing that to Donald Trump, they exposed themselves as the traitors that they are, right? What they did was a coup against our president, organized by the highest levels of our intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies. Right. So that's, how much more serious could it get, right? That's we the people said, look, we're not doing this establishment thing anymore. And if you try to ram this down our throats, we're going to ram Donald Trump down your throats, right? We're going to take this Hue and Molotov cocktail and we're going to just throw it right onto you. And we're going to let you know, the will of the people needs to be respected. And so their response to that was to try to thwart our will again, and in the most underhanded and illegal ways possible. So this is one of the things I think that the Republicans need to get on board with is, Republicans are my team. I grew up in a Republican household, love the Republican voters to death, right? A lot of them my friends and family. But we need to understand that these gangsterific organizations like the FBI, like the CIA, these are not legitimate security or law enforcement apparatuses. They are gangster mafias that are endangering our national security. And every day we play this little nuance game of, a few of them are bad, but they're mostly good. Or, a few of them are doing bad things, but, we just need them and we got to look the other way on this. We got to stop doing that, right? We got to say these organizations have no legitimacy whatsoever. They are fundamentally corrupt, and they are fundamentally a threat to not just my rights, not just General Flynn's rights, not just Donald Trump, the president's rights. They are a threat to every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America, and they need to be neutralized yesterday. So Donald Trump, right, he's the president, and he's known for hitting back when people hit him. And he would like to hit back. He would like to, disband these organizations, but he needs the overwhelming Democratic mandate to be able to do that. right? He can't just pull the chair if they still have, popularity. So part of a big part of this is us going out and telling people, look, these people are endangering us. They're sabotaging our constitutional rights. They're not doing their jobs. They're blocking and tackling for the worst human traffickers and the worst terrorists out there, and it needs to end, right?
Right.
So we kind of got to sharpen the rhetoric there.
Okay, let me just say that this is a conversation. So anybody who is, with us, Aaron, Steve, and Audrey, if you want to make a comment to something that is being said, go, just, interject when you can. If there's a pause or something, but let me just let Audrey have a chance to comment. One of the things, Austin, that I think was really a message I haven't been hearing anywhere else except for you, is trying to bring the left over. And that's huge. Nobody's saying that. Everybody just wants to, to really call them libtards or call them whatever, or, sheeple or whatever. But that doesn't help us. That doesn't unite us. That doesn't bring us together. That further divides us. So, Austin, I have to give you credit for starting this, I'm going to say, because I haven't seen anybody on social media, including myself. I haven't been trying to encourage the left to see the light of day. And I'm not saying that I'm specifically ignoring them or anything like that, because anybody can view my reports. It's just I don't have a strategy to try to do it, but you're kind of making a strategy to do it. And I think I give you credit for that, a lot of credit for that. But let me ask Audrey Ewis, if you want to jump in right now, if you have a question or if you want to comment on this idea of, uniting the left and bringing the left into the conversation and not leaving them out. What do you think about that, Audrey?
The thing is, they always say that the left and the right, they're two wings of the same bird. And the thing is, we want everybody to meet in the middle. We want everybody to agree. We want everybody to work together. But the problem is people have this old idea of politics that they just can't seem to let go of. Mm-hmm. That one side has to war against the other. No, all sides can work together and get a much bigger purpose done.
Well, and just real quick, if I can jump in,
okay.
I would say like the biggest thing is, like from my perspective, being able to unite people really comes down to, we'll call it like our common enemy, because if people on the left and the people on the right, we're coming from different perspectives, and like the people on the left, they view a lot of their politicians and stuff as being these morally upright people, even people like Nancy Pelosi. I still have family members who put stuff on Facebook about how great Nancy Pelosi is, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what, have you not seen what's going on? So I think really just like how Austin's talking about like the FBI and the corruption, and it's not just the FBI, because if anyone's seen any of Austin's videos, he goes into pretty good detail about how this has been, it's organized from the top, from an organization called D6, and it's something that, when people can just see it for themselves, when we can just show them the evidence, and we can say, no, look, this is really what's going on. And the fact that they could do something like this to our president, to General Flynn, to Austin, I mean, what kind of precedent does that set when these people are, somebody who, especially like the president, if they were able to do that to him, what does that say about what they could do to somebody like me who has no power by myself? I've got nothing to stop them if they wanted to come bust my door down over free speech. If I went and called my friends, if they'd say took my YouTube video down, and I called 100 of my friends and said, hey, they had no right to take this video down, there was nothing on there, let's call and email them, and the next thing I know, I got FBI showing up at my door because of political activism, that's a very dangerous precedent, and that affects everybody. And I think that's where we really need to be explaining this, because the lefties, especially like the 70s, and it was all about free speech. And now they've kind of shifted, and we kind of need to, like, from my view, get them back to that. You remember when you guys cared about free speech? Like, this is going to affect you just as much as it affects people on the right. It's all of us in this
Right.
together. So
Steve, what do you think about what's going on over in Europe? I mean, you're in Eastern Europe, and you know, I know you travel a lot around the world. And what is, you know, do you talk to people about Q, about the Great Awakening, and how do you think we can unite people?
Well, at the moment, there's not a lot of travel going on.
No,
But,
not at the moment.
well, I'm in Central Europe, so well, listen, it's like this. I mean, we're dependent on, we get two forms of media. Of course, we get the mainstream media, which in the German-speaking countries, in Austria in any case, it's a bit better than Germany. It's less controlled, and they have their own ways of making commentary about it. So I occasionally scan the Italian press, the Spanish press, the French press, the UK press. A lot of them are in lockstep, as they always have been. So it's I think it's a worldwide agenda. We're towing the line here in Europe generally. I think there is, if you look at social media, this is the other aspect of media that we get is the alternative media, and that is happening here, the German-speaking world. There's unrest happening now. People are getting impatient with let's say the lockdown that's happened, because they see that some of the numbers don't add up, and even if they did, they're still not high enough to warrant what's happened to shut down an entire global economy. So, and thinking people realize that this is going to lead to not only let's say a financial crash, but they're talking about at the EU level implementing these tracking apps, which they track us anyway. But this is going to be something that they're trying to suck us into doing of our own free will. To have an app that has a green light that appears if you're not too close to somebody, or that you're in an area where there isn't anybody that's been tested for this virus. Oh. So there's several things going on. People are waking up slowly and making commentary on social media that maybe it's gone too far. They've tried to, in their own way, censor. There's been some serious discussion in the German media, the national, like the BBC of Germany, ZDF. They had a very interesting panel the other day, which they blocked from YouTube. They had to keep it on their own website, but you'd have to watch the whole interview, which is about 40 minutes, and many people wouldn't do that. But it was basically several doctors saying that one did 35 autopsies in Hamburg, and said that that these people died of previous conditions were all over 70. So it's just absolute crap. The numbers are crap. So we're having draconian measures pushing on martial law that's happening over here. That's happening, I guess, to a certain extent in the States and in Asia especially. I know, speaking to people in Asia, there are military on the streets in some of the countries, and they have really draconian laws that fine you. Australia, for instance, I'm looking at Australian media. People are being fined for going swimming by themselves. It's just absurd. They're pushing the edge. They're seeing how far they can go, how much we're going to suck it up before we complain. That's what's happening at the moment. So, look, I mean, if Austin can tell us, I'd like to hear his game plan, what he knows, what he thinks he knows, and what he's assuming is going to happen in the future, what he's heard. I'd really like to know that, because the game plan, as far as I see, is we're heading to global martial law and a new world order. That's where we're heading right now, from my perspective.
Okay, Austin, did you want to comment on that?
I can't comment too much, other than to say that what you're seeing is kind of the accelerated, the people trying to move us towards that one world order. Maybe didn't expect us to be pulling off QAnon as effectively as we did. And so they are kind of forced to try to go before they're ready. And it's one of those things, they're just kind of exposing who they are. And best examples I can give in the United States is like the Trump administration. They'll set broad frameworks for how local governments should be responding to this, but they ultimately leave the ultimate authority to that to the local governors or to the local mayors. And it's an example in the United States. I'm sure this is happening elsewhere, but the best example I can give in the United States is people in New York, for example. Like you said, they're out. It's just like a guy and his kid playing ball in the park around nobody else, and they get fined or they get arrested or they get whatever. So it's a great example of how a lot of opportunistic politicians are trying to take this pandemic and pile on in various ways to score political points or to consolidate political power. And it happens all over the world. It's very disappointing. But that's one of the things, like it's kind of being laid to bear right now for everybody to see in a lot of different ways, not just the coronavirus, but how little our government actually cares about our rights. Like we have constitutions, we have theoretical rights on paper, but this is all like showing us just exactly how little almost every government on earth cares about what's written on those papers and our actual rights.
Well, that's true, but is this Aaron and maybe both and Audrey, everybody can comment on this. Is this then not the way to unite everybody, whether you're on the right, left, or on the fence in the middle? I mean, look, we're getting ready to have these indictments exposed. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play this real quick, just for a moment, because this is Joe DeGeneva, okay, former former U.S. attorney, talking about commenting on what's about to happen. Oh,
it's very low.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was Bill Barr. Hold on a second. Let me just turn up the volume a little bit. I'll try this again.
I can't hear it.
Asking more about the footnotes in a second, but since you brought up Bill Barr, I want to play a piece of audio for you. And this is, as you mentioned, the intensity and severity that I have not heard Bill Barr use yet. And Bill Barr spoke at the time. This particular clip shows that he unequivocally has assessed, along with John Durham, that there was no mistake here when it came to going on the president's office. Listen to that. And what happened again was the greatest.
It's okay on the live stream.
Without any basis, they started this investigation, which came out, and even more concerning, actually, what happened after the campaign, whole pattern of events while he was president. So I could talk about and I think that we have to accept the presidency.
Yeah.
In other words, the greatest travesties in American history is opening this without basis, this investigation, while he was a candidate, and then what's even worse, sabotaging the presidency.
Yeah, and so let me just go to the beginning where Joe DeGeneva talks about how it was done, okay? And then we can comment about it.
Here is a section of what DeGeneva said early in the interview. Bill Barr announced there are going to be indictments in this case when he went on the Laura Ingraham show the other night and gave an amazing interview for an attorney general of the United States. He said, yeah, sure, John Durham could write a report, but that's not what he's doing. He's getting ready to bring indictments if he has the evidence, quote unquote. But if he has the evidence is like a passé footnote. What the attorney general was saying after saying that Crossfire Hurricane was one of the greatest travesties in American history and that he was deeply disturbed about the evidence that he had seen. I think it's pretty clear that John Brennan, if he doesn't have a lawyer now, then he'd better get one because the indictments are coming.
All right, so Joe, on Friday, Senators Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson disclosed 4 redacted footnotes from the IG report. 4 of them. So there's a lot to get to. To you, which one was the most information, the quote-unquote bombshell of the footnotes on Friday?
Well, I think their information was important, but it demonstrated that there is now conclusive evidence at any point that we need that the FBI was engaged in not only selling this information, but knowingly selling this information to the FISA courts. Those 4 footnotes are very important, and that's why they were kept classified. And the reason is they were classified because they implicate foreign governments, probably the United Kingdom more than anyone, and also very sensitive Russian intelligence sources that the CIA is aware of. But more important than the footnotes is, excuse me for jumping ahead here, but the headline today is Bill Barr announced that there are going to be indictments in this case. When he went on the Laura Ingraham show the other night and gave an amazing interview for an attorney general of the United States, he said, yeah, sure, John Durham could write a report, but that's not what he's doing. he's getting ready to bring indictments if he has the evidence, quote unquote.
Yeah, so there it is. So Austin, I'm sorry, I wasn't screen sharing that, was I? Was that not a screen shared?
No.
View, okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Austin, did you hear any of that?
I did hear that.
You did?
And yes, and I mean, all I could say is, it's been very frustrating, not just the, outrageously treasonous behavior of people like Comey, Clapper, and Brennan. It's been, I would say, more disappointing to me to hear the just silence from the rest of the CIA and from the rest of the FBI. We have a bunch of agents, we have a bunch of law enforcement officers out there that, if they're worth their salt, they could see exactly what's going on. And their silence throughout this whole process has been absolutely deafening. So I would like to say that now that that's on the horizon, now that all of those agents know that that's on the horizon, if any of them are listening today, you need to speak out. You need to come out and you need to say exactly what's going on here, or we need to get you out of our law enforcement agencies. If you do not have the character or the psychological fortitude to come out and call out absolutely outrageous behavior that, gravely endangers our country, when you see it, then you don't deserve to wear a badge, right? And we need to be taking that line with these guys of, look, if you're not going to protect us, if you're not going to speak out even when it's not easy, we need to get you out of there. You do not deserve to have a job. You do not deserve to wear a badge. You do not deserve to be protecting us. And that's just how it's got to be. Like, if we wouldn't have had this QAnon movement, we would have had a sizable percentage of people picking up arms and trying to go start a civil war, right? Because of what they were doing to Donald Trump was so outrageous. So the fact that they tracked us, they not only are crapping on our rights, they're not only monitoring us 24/7, they're not only, engaged in coups against the duly elected president of the United States, they're also tracking us we're trying to track us towards a devastating civil war. So this, I think the American public at large needs to understand the gravity of this, and that we need to set an example, not just like Barr and Durham and whatnot. All of us need to set the example that there will be such a firestorm of this that intelligence agents 1,000 years from now can look back and say, ooh, I better not try that, because remember what happened to Comey, Clapper, and Brennan? Yikes. Yeah. We need to set the precedent now that if you ever try this again, you will not have a career and you will potentially be tried for treason. And if it was up to me, people like John Brennan and James Comey would be publicly hanged for treason. Obviously, that's not my call. But that is what they deserve in my mind. And that would be justice in my mind.
Right. The FBI knowingly sold disinfo to FISA court and brought it internationally so that it could then be used, it could be brought back to the United States and then used. This is what they do, and this is their MO, and they do this. And just imagine, folks, see, the president has access to the media. Even General Flynn, who's struggling with, trying to get his legal bills covered and lost his house to pay for attorneys. There's no protection for us. I mean, there is none. What Austin is saying is 100% correct. There's nothing stopping the federal government from litigating you into or prosecuting you into oblivion. And it's like, there's no check and balance. There's nobody, there's no oversight, there's no accountability, because they're all on the take. And so what they do is they create a false narrative. They build a fictitious case based on it. They use the full power of the government, meaning, let's say if it's on a state level, they use Child Protective Services, they use the local police, they use the county sheriff's department, they use the courts, they get guardian ad litems, they do, I'm telling you, it doesn't end. And so then what they do is they litigate a person into bankruptcy, and the defamation that results out of this, the person's broken, bankrupted, and this is happening to Americans. That's the problem, Austin. It is happening to Americans, and there's nothing we can do about it.
The other thing is, like, a lot of people know about this, right? So people in my family that work in law enforcement or around defense, their issue with me doing this, their major objection to me doing this, wasn't even necessarily that I'm wrong about the facts. Their objection was, hey, it doesn't matter. You know, anyone who's tried this in the past gets killed or railroaded. And yes, you're right, but like that, it is what it is, and that's the system, and we just kind of got to deal with it. And so what I'm saying to them is, no, we don't have to deal with it. Our power as the people is vastly superior to their power as these law enforcement agencies. And we just need to start using that. We need to wake up, we need to realize that. And if we all get angry, as we should be about this at one time, there's no chance they can survive. And we could turn their crossfire hurricane into our crossfire hurricane.
Right. Now, if we looked at set theory, right, we want to find the area where the two different groups intersect. And that's what our common, that's where we can start when it comes to uniting people. Aaron, where do you see the two groups intersecting? Can we, do you think the left and the right can both agree on ending corruption?
Well, I think, you know, it was an interesting, the way that Austin framed about the Constitution. And he said that we have, you know, it's written down. So we have these so-called rights. But I think what he's really pointing out is the fact that just because things are written down on paper, if it's not written in your heart as an American or as anybody really in the world, I mean, I know the United States specifically, really this is where it has to start, because we do have the Constitution on paper. But people, they don't see it for themselves. They don't see themselves as, you know, created equal, as a, you know, as a son or daughter of God, you know, one nation under God. They don't, that freedom doesn't ring in their heart anymore. And they've become so passive, you know, through the years of indoctrination and media influence on their lives, that it's really hard for people to read between the lines. But that's why I keep coming back to this. For me, this common strain of reality is really about what are the precedents, what are the things that are being done by the FBI and the CIA that will affect our lives down the, you know, a lot of these people, I'll refer to the people on the left, they think that they're safe because the people that are doing that are on the attack are on the so-called left, you know, or they have the tactics that the people on the left use. But the reality is the people on the left, the average citizens like myself, just like what Austin is saying, and I reference back to this too with the president, when during his inaugural speech, you know, he said this is about returning the power to the people. But you can't return power to the people if the people don't know that they have the power, or if they don't want it, or if they just can't see it. And the only way that power exists is within unity. Like, I don't have the power by myself, but if I have 10,000 people by my side, or 1 million people by my side, there's the real power. It's when we unify. And that's when those rights actually can be displayed, and that we can show. It's like you have to show people the power of the people before they'll actually get it. And I think that's really what Austin's creating. You know, if you look what he did with Dado, he was able to, within one day, gather enough people to jam up their phone lines and their emails and show them that, look, we're dead seriously about this. And this is just a small taste of what's coming, because we are unifying people, and we're going to continue to do so anytime they keep coming against us. And I've said this before too, that I'm sure Austin feels the same way, that the only way out of this for me is death. They're going to have to kill me, because it's liberty, give me liberty or give me death. And I think that is something that really needs to be, that fire needs to be lit in people's hearts again, where at one time we had that, and now people just, they feel so powerless, and it's because they don't see that freedom. They don't feel it for themselves.
Well, they don't know that they don't have it until they walk into a courtroom and they find out that way. Then they go down the rabbit hole, right, Austin? That's when you go down the rabbit hole. The minute you step into a courtroom anywhere in this country is the minute you step down into that rabbit hole, because you are not going to know what to expect next. Yeah.
I was going to say, and the minute you realize that the judges are not impartial at all, like the judges always default to supporting the CIA, always default to supporting the FBI. I mean, it was a preposterous, in my preliminary hearing, it was a preposterous case that they were trying to make, telling the judge that our phone calls physically damaged Dado servers But the judges are such spineless little cowards, such careerist, ladder-climbing little cowards, that they don't want to go against the FBI on anything. So they're just, the judges are just as bad. They're the ones rubber stamping all of this BS. And we got to decide as the people, like, no, this is not okay. And if you are a judge that is just rubber stamping this FBI gangsterism, then you are threatening our national security just as much as the FBI is. So an earlier point I didn't quite get to make, but I wanted to say that one of the reasons we need the lefties so bad is we need to be able to triangulate, right? So when the Democrats are trying to run a coup against Donald Trump, they get the worthless fake duty rhinos like Jeff Flake and like Lindsey Graham on board that pretend this is legitimate, and they essentially are triangulating against Trump, right? So the fact that they can get a couple of Republicans to come out and say, hey, we think there might be something to this, we should look into this, they are waging this really effective assault against President Trump, and we need to turn the tables on them and start doing that ourselves, right? Because all the Republicans, they are extremely hardened to all attacks coming from their left, right? Any lefties, any Democrats, the Republicans are by far the strongest when they're getting attacked from the left. They have the easiest time fending that off. But when they get attacked from the Make America Great Again people, from their right, essentially, they just have a super soft back, and they just get absolutely lit up, torn up, and that's why we were able to get Donald Trump in there in the first place. So that same concept applies on the left, right? The establishment Democrats are super hardened to any attacks coming from their right. It's easy for them to fend off. It's easy to keep their people on board when they're getting attacked from the right. But when they're getting attacked from the left, when people like Jimmy Dore or like Joe Rogan are saying, like, screw you guys, we're not voting for Joe Biden. He's a demented old man that needs his car keys taken away, not, to be given the nuclear football. That sort of attack really lays into them, right? They are a really soft left flank. So if we could be working with the lefties to help triangulate these McVampires on out of here by taking advantage of the fact that the Democrats are softest on their left and us taking advantage of the fact that Republicans are softest on their right, we can really make stuff happen and really provide President Trump the air support that he needs on this. And we can also be showing the, maybe uninformed third parties of, look, across the spectrum, you got the socialists over here, you got the Make America Great Again people over here. We're all saying the same thing of, look, this FBI is rotten, the CIA is rotten, and they have to go right away. And that's really what's gonna bring down the house on these entrenched power structures that we haven't been able to get rid of for so long.
Let me ask Audrey to jump in here. Audrey, did you have a comment or a question that you wanted to add at this time? Because what we're looking at is, it goes down to the state level too, though, Austin. It's not just at the federal level. That's the problem. This invisible enemy, right, has infiltration instead of invasion, right? So, it's in every aspect of our society, more so than anybody knows. I think most people don't realize they don't have rights because they're living under that illusion, that propaganda that was painted for them through the mainstream media, that, we have rights and we have this. But the minute you walk into that courtroom, unless you have a gazillion dollars, to hire attorneys or, you don't have any rights.
And Audrey was just saying about how it's two wings of the same bird. And there was I always tell the lefties, there's this comedian that they love so much, George Carlin, how he always used to say, it's one big club and you ain't in it. And so when I tell the lefties, they're like, what is QAnon about? It's like, it's about airstriking that big club that you ain't in and getting them out of here, beat them off our back. So Audrey was saying it's a uniparty sort of a deal. And that's exactly kind of the message I'm trying to get out there.
Right. Audrey, go ahead.
All right, so I love what you said about.
Try to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. I love what you said, Austin, about how they're trying to get into the a form of nuclear football, and that's very true. All of these countries, it's a big chessboard, it's a big chess game. Everything is a game. This is an old game. This has been going on for a long, long time. The problem is the people who believe they have rights, they don't have all of the rights that they believe they have as long as they're living within the confines of this society. They're playing by the rules of the society. That's the thing, that borderline's treason to not do so. And that's how the federal government threatens everyone into submission.
Mhm.
And it's all about fear. It's a fear system and it's a debt system. You know, you have fear and you have debt. They show the people what to fear. They use media. They use, you know, television, social media. They use the entertainment industry, radio.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I have to
The news-
interrupt. Austin, I'm sorry. Austin, I think you're breathing a little bit into the microphone, and it's just, if you could hold the, only when you're talking can you hold it like right that close, because it's just, what is it, Steve? It's like reverberating or whatever. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Audrey. Finish, please.
But as I was saying, if the people would just open their eyes to see what is right in front of them, to put their foot down, to stop blaming those in office and look towards the cabal, the people really pulling the strings in the background. You know, everyone together as a united front, together in one day could make a difference if everyone stood up tomorrow. You know, and I very firmly believe that.
Well, wasn't Standing Rock a good example of that?
Absolutely. We were putting our foot down against big oil, you know, and these big corporations that like to put pipelines through sacred burial grounds and sacred sites and, you know, things sacred to these tribes, the Native American people. You know, we went up there to protect the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota people of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. And their only crime was going up to the front line to pray, you know, to their creator and their religion, their tradition. You know, that was all they were going up there to do. They did not go there in violence. They didn't go there, as they say, in a bad way. They
Right.
were up there to merely pray, and they were treated as hostile. The Morton County sheriffs up there, they used what they call less than lethal force in lethal ways on unarmed civilians and unarmed veterans. You know,
there was
Go ahead,
through
Austin.
the river. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to say it was also a great example of, like, if you looked at their emails, how in public the Democrats are pretending like, oh yeah, you know, go Standing Rock protesters, we're totally on your side. And when you looked in their emails, you saw, hey, they're taking money from that pipeline company and blocking and tackling for them behind the scenes. So they're saying one thing and doing something completely different. And then not only that, they were calling those environmental activists Russian agents. They were saying that was a Russian intelligence operation. So it's one of those things, and people are like, oh, why is that a big deal? The big deal is since the 60s, and this even happened on Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, when they designate somebody as a foreign enemy combatant like that, that opens this Pandora's box of legal mechanisms they're able to take to neutralize that threat. So it's not just that they're calling us Russian agents, it's essentially that they're deeming us foreign enemy combatants, and they're opening this legal door of where they get to just tee off on us in the most underhanded ways possible. And it's not just with those environmental protesters, right? Like this Phoenix field office of the FBI tried to put out the case that the QAnon movement is a domestic terrorist organization. So that's them essentially saying, we would like to tee off on these guys in the most underhanded ways imaginable by pretending that they're foreign enemy combatants instead of legitimate Americans voicing legitimate concerns.
Oh, but Antifa's okay, throwing rocks and vandalizing, you know, businesses and throwing rocks at police officers. And, you know, I mean, but that's okay, right?
Yep, and I actually have a great, I don't know, I did an interview with Baby Q Plus channel the other day where I was saying the guy I shook hands with in the end of that Screwy Louie video, he was a veteran and a really smart guy, and I won't say his name, I just said his name was P for now. But he has this crazy story at University of, it was Utah, where and he got hit in the head. He was one of the people that got hit in the head with bike lock by Antifa. And he personally witnessed the FBI going into the university, going into the police, and essentially standing them down in favor of Antifa. So he's a guy that not only has the witness of that, what happened was we were a popping alpha company, but he also has a personal experience with what these FBI stand-down orders of if you're the gangsters that they like, if you're the gangsters that are carrying their water for them on a given day, they will literally stand down all the law enforcement around you and just allow you to run wild and pretty much come after the rest of us. It's totally preposterous.
Right. I mean, how many, but they're in on it, and that's the whole thing. I mean, they can't get away with these things on federal levels. Let's just talk about the child trafficking, okay? It's a hierarchy. It starts at the local level. You can look at it either way. You can either go up or can go down. But it feeds each other, right? And so you can't have so it starts on the local level. Oh, and I'm gonna find a video. We all remember Senator Nancy Schaefer, who was brutally murdered in her home after exposing literally that CPS, Child Protective Services, was literally ordering children to order. Saying they needed certain children. They were looking for certain children to. They had people recruiting for children for the purposes of trafficking. So they all have to be working together, don't they, Austin?
Yep, and it's such a like you mentioned, it's such a all encompassing problem, right? It's happening at the federal level, it's happening at the international level, it's happening at the local level. That's why we need our federal law enforcement agencies, and we need our spy agencies firmly in our square, right? We will never ever get rid of all this until we have federal law enforcement agencies that actually go after the bad guys instead of just blocking and tackling for them, right? The FBI has tens of thousands of agents, and if all those agents are being steered away from our most serious problems, then it's one of those things of where they're not just not doing their job, they're actively thwarting our national security.
Absolutely. Who's next? Steve, Aaron, Audrey? Who wants to jump in?
Well, I just have something to say. Look, I agree with everything that people are saying. I'm just personally disappointed with how things are going at the moment. I mean, they're testing the limits, and people are rolling over and allowing the police state to take over, even though on flimsy evidence. So I think their test, if it's a test, is succeeding. I think this is the beginning of something much larger. I do believe it is the end game for them, and they're succeeding fantastically. I just want to see evidence that there are going to be indictments. It's been a lot of hot air over the last years. I haven't seen any evidence really that big stuff is happening. Okay, maybe it's all in the process. Maybe it's going to come next week. I don't know. But I want to see that. I think you guys in the States, as I've said many times, have a better chance of getting this going if it's going to work. And that's where it's actually the action's going to happen. If it's really you're going to avoid a takeover. You guys are the ones that are going to do it. I don't see the Europeans doing anything. The UK, they have such a grasp on the people, such a control of their minds. I don't see that happening. I think you guys, the libertarians, the guys that can think out of the box over in the States, are the guys, and I'm looking to you. I'm hoping. I don't see any evidence here. Australia's controlled. Asia, there's no hope. So you guys, you are it. Basically, that's all I'd like to say.
And Aaron, who do you think the first indictment's going to be? Aaron?
Well, I'm not sure about as far as the indictments. Like it kind of like the way I kind of see it is.
The big one. The big drop, right? The big drop.
Yeah, let's just say like tomorrow. It was Hillary Clinton or John Brennan or James Cohen, any one of them. You could just pick any one of them. What would be the backlash from the media, the people on the left? Are there enough people that have seen what's gone on with that yet to where the backlash wouldn't be? Because that's kind of the issue we're dealing with. Is it's not so much that it's a right or wrong thing, because we know what happened, but if there's too many people out there who are still kind of in their slumber and they haven't been paying attention to any of this, and all of a sudden they wake up and CNN screaming at them that the Trump administration is trying to attack political opponents and stuff, and they just go at it from that angle. They could very easily rile up people on the left, like Austin said, like a call to action, where they become violent about it and they start taking to the street. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is like an actual violent revolution. This is, from my view, the only way this can be done right is it has to be a silent revolution where the people unite naturally. And it has to be through showing the evidence. Mm-hmm. So I personally don't think that any of the indictments are going to come down until we get to that point. It's not really possible.
I would also tell Steve, I know it seems kind of grim right now, but the thing is, behind the scenes, there are so many more people that are on our side than that are willing to actually say that. So many more people that are like thinking the same thing as we're thinking, that they're just scared, right? They see what happens to me, they see what happens to whoever, and they just feel like, yikes, like I agree, but I don't want to necessarily risk my own livelihood or safety to make that happen. So I think the more people that we can be, I'm trying to emulate the behavior of like, I will not be silenced by the gangster mafia FBI. I will not back down. I will not surrender. We're going to walk straight at them. And no matter what they do to me, we're going to keep pushing forward. And I think as more and more people come out and decide the same thing, right, it turns into this huge, and I would say this during the 2016 election to people who were feeling like this is hopeless. We're just setting ourselves to get teed off on by Hillary Clinton when she elected. And I told them at the time, look, they have us temporarily outgunned, no doubt, but they are hopelessly outflanked. And as long as we keep pushing forward, there is no way they can stop us. And what we start here in America, like when we show everybody that it's possible, I think that will wake up the rest of the world and they'll see that this is possible for them too.
Okay, that's a good message. I just hope that people wake up in time. I think people's livelihoods are being destroyed, and the next months, what's going to happen is going to be they're going to have us by the cojones with the financial situation, because nobody's going to have much money going around. All the businesses are going to shut down. It's going to be quite incredible. So I think, where's the pain, the level of pain that's going to put people into action? That's my question. So let's hope you're right. Let's hope.
Durham's got what, 170,000 sealed indictments, Austin? Is that about right?
He's got over 100,000, but the thing we got to keep in mind about those is that most of those are not necessarily like political people or like major criminals that are going down, that are out right now. Most of those are going to be people who are already in jail. So if we build the public support and we just, prove the FBI has been rotten to the core since its inception, that they are totally evil, totally corrupt, totally blocking and tackling for the CIA, what that would do is that would allow every criminal, like every serial killer, every child trafficker, everybody who's legitimately in jail that's been legitimately prosecuted by the FBI, that would allow all of them to go back and challenge their cases and get right out, right, until they could be retried. So a big part of this whole operation has been doing all the legal legwork behind the scenes, getting that done in advance, so that way when we do cut the FBI's legs out and do splinter them into 1,000 pieces and scatter them into the wind, that all of these psychopaths can't just get out and come, unleash chaos on all of us, that we can keep them in jail. The people that deserve to be there will stay in jail. Right. And we can kind of like make these dramatic sweeping changes without causing a lot of extra chaos on ourselves.
Okay. Audrey, did you want to comment? Do you want to jump in here?
He's
Audrey?
muted. Yeah.
Audrey?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Anyway, I fully agree with Steve there. I've been watching how these things have been unfolding lately, and my biggest concern is that people that are trying to do the right thing are always the ones being persecuted, the ones that are being hammered down the most. Those of us working hard to try to get the truth out to the people, those of us trying to wake these people up are always the ones hit the hardest, because the moment these people wake up, the sleeping giant, the governments, governmentus, the mind control system, it loses control. So the system is fighting hard to survive,
and hopefully everybody that's getting, these Bush League tactics, that's being persecuted for doing the right thing, that's getting demonetized, throttled, censored, this or that, threatened, hopefully they'll take that as a badge of honor, and they'll realize, like, you take the most flack when you're over the target. And in the past, we've gotten really close to succeeding, but we have people, and, it's a common thing. It's just like, hey, they lose hope. Like, is this ever going to change? Are we actually going to be able to finish this? And if we can all just focus and keep pushing and not lose hope and realize this is possible, even if it feels kind of hopeless right now, if we can keep pushing and get over that that hump, build that critical mass, get our snowball to be big enough, then there's nothing that the government can do to stop us. Nothing that every government on earth can do to stop us. Nothing that the CIA, that the FBI can do to stop us. We will overwhelm them quickly once we get to a certain critical mass.
Well, let me just play a screen share here of Senator Nancy Schaefer talking about this, because if there is any issue on this planet that can unite the left and the right, it's the issue of our children. So let's listen to what she has to say.
Made this incredible World Congress of Families number. I will share with you on the unlimited power of Child Protective Services. I served in the Georgia State Senate, and after 4 years of viewing the ruthless and unsparing actions of Child Protective Services, also called CPS, which I will use tonight, I wrote a scathing report entitled "The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services." Thank you.
Really? That's all.
The report cost me my Senate seat. Here's some copies of the report, if you'd like to get one. However, there are causes worth losing over, and this is one. I'm going to talk about some of the problems and then some realistic, maybe, solutions for families and children, and maybe look to some steps that we can take.
Sorry, hold on a second. Keep going.
This is not to say that there are not those children in wretched situations who need to be removed. There are, and we all agree. But tonight, I'm talking about those children removed from their homes intentionally for profit. Children are seized unnecessarily from their families due to the federal aid created in 1974 entitled the Adoption and Safe Families Act. It offers financial incentives to the states that increase adoption numbers. To receive the adoption incentives or bonuses, local CPS must have more children. They must have more merchandise to sell. Funding is available when a child is placed in a foster home with strangers or placed in a mental health facility and medicated, usually against the parents' wishes. Parents are victimized by the system that makes a profit for holding children longer and bonuses for not returning children to their parents. This is abuse of power. It is lack of accountability, and it is a growing criminal political phenomenon spreading around the globe. Oftentimes, but not always, poor parents are targeted to lose their children because they do not have the wherewithal to hire an attorney or fight the system. Being poor and lacking proper housing does not mean your children should be removed. CPS has redefined poor to mean psychologically inferior. Therefore, it is in the best interest of the child to be removed. Best interest, of course, has also been redefined at the child's expense. It has been reported over and over that 6 times as many children die in foster care than in the general public. Once a child is legally kidnapped and placed in official safety, the child is far more likely to suffer abuse, including sexual molestation and/or rape. Case workers and social workers are often guilty of fraud. They withhold and destroy evidence, and they seek wrongly to terminate parental rights while being protected by state immunity. There is a huge bureaucracy made up of judges, court-appointed attorneys, guardian ad litems, social workers, state employees, court investigators, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, foster parents, adoptive parents, and on, who are looking to the children in state care for their job security. Judges have control over private living arrangements and income of 48.3 million Americans. The United States Census Bureau reported in 2002 that $40 billion in transfer payments were made between households of custody parents and other parents. That money, $40 billion, is under the direction and control of family court judges in environments covered with confidentiality laws that protect the wrong people. Fathers are victims of this unjust system. Child support payments, even without having visits with their children, are choking the very life out of fathers. 3 fathers, of whom I am aware.
Okay, I'm not going to go into those details, but mothers are too, because they know that the mothers are going to keep fighting. So when they take custody away from a mother, you know the mother is going to keep fighting. And what that is, it's called churning the cases. So they deliberately create the problems in the court system that, like, they create animosity and they create more, I would say, reasons for litigating. They just create more reasons for filing motions, create more reasons for, and of course, usually if it's an upper class family, they were stay-at-home mothers. So, you know, they're usually cut off from the family purse and then can't represent themselves. Austin, this is absolutely a crime. This is such a crime against humanity. It's a crime against the sacred bond of our family members. And as Nancy Schaefer said, they use the full, force of the state and full immunity when they are, guilty of corruption, guilty of these schemes, money laundering, or this is the best interest. Yeah. Parents part trade. You don't have rights to your children, folks. Under parents part trade, any judge can take your kids from you if they don't like you, or if you talk to the media, which is what happened to me. So I do know that firsthand. Adoption, yep. Safe families. So Austin, how do people have a chance? People don't realize, only someone who really did something bad gets, their kids taken away from them. No, that's not true. But here we have, she says, the poor family, the poor parents are targeted. Now, this is where we can unite the left and the right, right, Austin? Is this the intersection where those 2 points intersect?
I wanted to
Absolutely. I'll let Audrey, it sounds like Audrey's got something to add. I'll let him add that first, and then we can.
Okay, so I've dealt with CPS for a long time. When I was fighting my ex-wife to get my kids back, I tried to enlist their aid, actually, to help me. Now, of course, they always keep the kids with the wrong people, That's usually how it goes.
Right.
And Arizona is a mother state, so they never really rule in favor of the man. They always rule in favor of the mother. So the way the system works, CPS, they are certified child kidnappers, quite literally. This is what they do, and they help with the human trafficking thing by adding more merchandise to the table. And then that gets traded through, places like Bohemian Grove, to people who pay top dollar to acquire, kids of their choosing. So the thing is, the system has to break. This circle of child kidnapping, child, molestation, manipulation, selling off these kids like they are cattle. This needs to stop. How do we stop that?
Well, it's one of those things. We need an FBI that is not just going to block and tackle for the CIA. So that lady, that senator that exposed that stuff, she only got up to the Child Protective Services level, and she didn't realize this is not necessarily just a Child Protective Services thing. This is a CIA thing. And the FBI is going to block and tackle for that. So the CIA is going to get MI6 to go send some assassins to go kill her, and then the FBI is just going to look the other way and pretend like, oh, nothing to see here. And that's kind of one of the things, like the child courts, the idea of getting children away from abusive parents, that was by a lot of people passed in a well-intended way, right? We don't want children with abusive parents, but we need the FBI, we need our federal law enforcement to be keeping an eye on them, right? And saying, like, you can take them from legitimately abusive people, but if you start participating in these vast, and it's unbelievably vast, like how big this problem is, it's going to shock most people. But if you are doing that, we need an FBI that's going to come in and bust you up instead of going to block and tackle for you, right? And that's, I think, the biggest thing I'm trying to stress. And the best example I can give of this is the Finders document. So the Finders was a document dump that just got auto declassed like a few months back, and I'm having my team put together some information on this. But essentially, it was law enforcement agencies. There was ones in LA, in DC, in Dallas, all over the country. They were independently investigating these really horrifying and strange tunnels going up and under preschools where the CIA was facilitating these child kidnapping rings. And this is all, it's all out there. It's tweeted out by the FBI official account. They kind of bury it in a bunch of other nonsense, so it's hard to see. But there's indisputable proof out there how the FBI comes in to all the local law enforcement that's trying to clean that up. And they essentially say, this is a federal investigation now. Hand over all your evidence and pretty much let us handle it. And then they just sit on it and pretend that's not a thing for 50 years until it gets declassed. So that is a crystal clear example of how the FBI is not only not protecting us, like as in looking the other way or being corrupt, they are actively aiding and abetting these people that are kidnapping our children. And so that's the message we're really trying to drive home is like, look, this isn't just garden variety corruption. This is active malice and active evil being continuously perpetuated on us that will never stop until these fundamentally corrupt organizations like the FBI and CIA are broken up and shattered or scattered into the wind.
Yeah, that's quite right. Austin, I have a question for you. A couple of years ago, I was, for over many years, I've looked into this child trafficking thing. It's very disturbing. You come across things like the Cannibal Club, I think it's in Los Angeles. You come across all sorts of information, people living in, kids being bred in tunnels and secret bases and stuff. It's, the Pope's shoes made of red human leather. So, I mean, all these things, you don't know what to believe, what not to believe, but certainly you look at the Podesta brothers and the dots seem to connect. When you look at the images, the artwork they have, the people they hang out with, it all connects. What can you tell the listeners about what you know? Kids in the bases, hundreds of thousands of children disappear every year in the States alone. So what can you say?
I could just say that it's definitely happening. It's a massive problem, right? There's so much that it's hard to say, like, just this specifically, just absolutely. Like, this goes on all over the place. And even I told the story on maybe one of my other interviews. One of the things that really amped me up in all this, way back in the day, was there was a girl from upstate New York named Brittany Drexel, and she was on spring break down in South Carolina, and she got kidnapped, and it was kind of an open investigation for a long time. And when they realized the FBI some new evidence popped up, and the FBI couldn't really hide it for any longer, they made up this totally BS story that this girl had gotten, kidnapped, and then she tried to escape, so they fed her to alligators, and that's why there's no evidence, and blah, blah, case closed. So that's what the FBI said. That girl was sold in an auction overseas, like in that movie Taken, and the FBI nakedly covered it up for them because they knew that was a CIA thing. And that's exactly a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like, that's how bad they are. And the thing that amped me up about that was I realized before I met my wife that she kind of had the mark of the beast there going, and she was being groomed and set up to be one of these girls that gets kidnapped and sold in an auction overseas. So we started talking a lot when I just started staying around her a lot because I realized this was happening to her, and it wasn't even necessarily in a romantic way. I was just kind of like being a friend and staying close, and that's how we started talking a lot. But she was supposed to be one of those girls sold in auction overseas. So that really, the idea of my wife, you know, having that happen to her really amps me up and really makes me determined to end this once and for all. Because it's just so sadistic. And as you mentioned, the people, the Podesta brothers, they lean into all of the accusations, right? So they have all this crazy artwork. They, you know, do all these satanic rituals, and they kind of like pretend that like, oh, we're just, you know, weirdos being weird. And so most of the other people around them just kind of look at that as like, oh, like the people that don't know exactly who they are. Like, oh, they're just weirdos being weird, and that's just kind of like them doing them. And like, I think that's, you know, yucky, but I'm not necessarily involved in any of that Satanism stuff. And it's kind of a great cover, right? Because they're so flamboyant and so in your face that you just kind of assume like there's no way that they're actually trafficking kids and being that flamboyant about it, right? That is no way that they would get away. Somebody would do something about that. So they use this just standing out in the open, punching you in the face with it as cover, and it's a psychological trick where it works, and it's horrible and it's amazing that it works, but we just got to say, look, you are a child trafficker. You are a despicable human being, and it's like I said before, people like the Podestas, and I'm letting them know right now, if you have targeted children for things like kidnapping, rape, and torture, there will be no mercy for you. So enjoy your last few moments of freedom, because when we get to you, there's going to be no mercy. There's just going to be gruesome medieval deaths for gruesome medieval savages, and that's how it's got to be.
Well,
we got to set this message now that if anyone does this ever again, you will die.
How do I explain to somebody about adrenochrome, for instance? I mean, how can I even, I mean, how do you get your head around it? Does it exist? Can you tell me that it exists? And how can I explain it to somebody?
So I don't even like necessarily get into like the specifics of the adrenochrome or like how the molecule have it, anything like that, right? That's you know, in the weeds for a lot of people. I just say, I show scientific studies of how consuming, like if you get blood, and there's scientific articles about that right now, where rich people get blood transfusions from younger people, and the antibodies in young blood are, they prevent aging-related illnesses, they prevent dementia, they really keep you alive for a lot longer. So if you can get that blood, you can really, you know, extend your life dramatically. The other thing is that blood works even better for you if it's got a lot of adrenaline in it. So what adrenaline does, right, it's a biological survival mechanism, right, to where if things crazy are happening to you, you get stronger, you get more alert, you get kind of like a temporary boost of power from that. And as you age, your ability to produce adrenaline goes down and down and down and down. Right. So what they literally do is they will kidnap kids, and they'll go to these hooky spooky costume parties or use tunnels or use all this stuff to not only murder that child and take as much blood as possible, but to, in the process of murdering that child, do it as slow and as spooky as possible, with stuff like Halloween masks, with stuff like, you know, cutting them up slowly. And they do just the most sadistic things imaginable to get the most potent medicine possible for these older people. And what I say about that is the original lore of like surrounding Dracula and vampires and all this came out of Eastern Europe, where the World Death Racket was having these harvesting operations off of the children there. And so the original like guy who all of those tales are about, Vlad the Impaler, Queen Elizabeth, the lady who runs the UK, is a direct descendant of this guy. Yeah. And kind of as the lore goes, like these vampires, they drink blood and they live for indefinitely. But if they ever see themselves in the mirror, they'll just die instantly. And kind of the metaphor behind that is if those people ever saw how many children had to be gruesomely murdered to prolong their life by that little amount, they would just not be able to live with themselves and die. So that's kind of the metaphorical lore built into the old stories there. But I just tell people, look, that is very real. And if you want a good example of that, go watch the video of Queen Elizabeth. She was like driving herself around in a Range Rover. You know, in public she always pretends to be this frail old lady. But if you look at her interacting or doing things off camera, she functions like a, late 50s, early 60s individual. She's extremely cogent. it's almost magical, and she's in her 90s. So
98.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just it shows you that, and so I just tell people, look, there's real science behind this. This is a totally real thing. Whether you want to like specifically call it adrenochrome or not, it's just this sort of consuming the blood of the young is a way to like prolong your life, and has been forever. So the medieval savages that run the world, it's just we should naturally be able to deduce that those medieval savages that are doing all this other medieval stuff are definitely willing to kill, torture, maim as many people as they need to prolong their life by any amount of time, right? And they care about us so little. They could kill 100 children to prolong their life by a month, right? They don't care. We are just ants to them. Our life is meaningless to them. And that's kind of the sadistic attitude that we're really fighting against here.
All right, let me bring Aaron back in. Aaron, did you have any comments or questions at this time that you wanted to bring up?
I was just going to make a suggestion for anybody who's not really looked into a lot of this and obviously how it ties into Hollywood and everything. If I don't know how many of your viewers or people that are going to be listening to this in the future, but if you're not aware, one of the, we call them Q drops. So basically, if you just go to like qmap.pub or qanon.pub, if you look at post 3951, it was the one where they posted the Out of the Shadows official video. And I think that is a very good starting point for people to really look, because it's basically an insider's perspective from somebody who was around Hollywood for a long time and is able to give very good perspective. Liz Crokin is in there, and they go into great detail about the Podestas and everything like that. So that's a very good starting point for people who may be kind of looking at this and like, that sounds a little too far out there. Like, it's very real. And the more that we know about this and the more that it gets exposed, the more people are going to become angry about this. And what I think is important for people who have been aware of this for a long time is to be able to direct that energy, that anger towards something productive, because what it tends to do for a lot of people is they just want to take a gun and they want to go, try to end it themselves. But there is a way that we can go about this where it involves all of us first acknowledging that this stuff is real, and that utilizing that energy and that anger that, like Austin says, that we should be pissed about this, because this is, these are our children we're talking about, and I have children, and they could do this to my children, and there's nothing I could do to stop them.
There's nothing. That's the problem. There's nothing we can do. They will force themselves on us. They will force the full authority of the state. They will abuse their authority and their power. And while everybody's, pretending that, oh, we have rights. Oh, we have rights. We have rights. Like, they're really blissfully unaware. They're ignorant, and ignorant just means without knowledge. They're just ignorant of the fact that might be what they told you, but it's not what exists. And so the fact is, we don't have, and until people start to realize that they don't have these rights, they don't have any way to protect themselves. And I'm talking right now, I'm talking to the people on the left. If you're watching this broadcast, if you can stand it, if you're watching this is not about left and right, people. This is about right and wrong. And that's what's going to unite us. That's the intersection between the two sets that intersect. That's the intersection point, the right and wrong. When you can't look, when poor parents are targeted because they don't either have the funds or the wherewithal to fight, that's the left. That they're telling you right there that you're being targeted, you're being fleeced, and you're being used. Now, you're not being used by Donald Trump. I can guarantee you that. You're being used by the very people that you're trusting and the very people that you're standing to protect. So what I would say, my message for anyone on the left right now is, let's unite as humans and let's preserve humanity, because they're killing us. They're killing our children. They're killing us individually. Anybody who comes out as a whistleblower gets killed, as you know, most of the time, almost always. But they're taking our children, and you can't stop it. That's the reality of it. And when you realize, you know how many GoldFish reports I've done doing pleas for people who I find out that the courts kidnapped their children? I've done several videos and that made it into that person's courtroom, and they're like, stay off social media. But I'm like, you have no right to touch this person's newborn baby. Who do these people think they are, taking these babies right out of the hospital? And this is what they're doing. And you can't stop it. Now, if that is not enough to unite us, then I don't think anything will, because then you don't have any respect for life. And unfortunately, this is what the left has been representing, post-delivery abortions. Well, last I checked, that was murder. Abortions up to the 9th month. Hello, babies can survive at that point. You can't really seriously tell me you think that's okay. You just can't. And if you want socialism, there's plenty of other countries you can go to, but you're not going to turn this country, as President Trump has said, we will never be a socialist country. So the fact that we don't have any way to fight this, Austin, should get people rallied together, not divide us, but that should unite us and realize we must stop the abuse of power. And what's going to be exposed with this FISA and this Russian collusion and the Russian hoax and the hoax perpetrated trying to take the civil rights away from Americans who voted duly elected president into office, trying to usurp our vote, and create this global, international conspiracy to sabotage our president. These people have to be held accountable. So I think the best thing we can do. So one of the questions in the live chat was, how do we turn the tables on them, Austin? How do we turn the tables?
Well, a great place to start with the lefties is, if not the JFK stuff, I asked them, what was Martin Luther King doing when he got assassinated? What exactly was what was going on? And what was happening was he was organizing a massive rally on Washington, D.C. So the Democrats had just pulled this thing that they call the big switch of this just big fake psyop where they pretend like, we care about the black people and the minorities and the poor people, and those Republicans don't. So they had just tricked everybody, put these programs into place that on the surface, like Social Security, like Medicare, whatever, on their face, they seemed like good ideas, and they seemed nice, and they seemed like, oh man, we're really, moving, we're creating a great society. But in real life, that was a total crock. That was a total hoax. And it really didn't actually substantially address the needs of anyone. So Martin Luther King was organizing a massive rally on Washington, D.C., I want to say it was in 1968, to create a crowd and show everybody Lyndon Johnson is full of shit. He did nothing for us. He hoaxed us into a war. He pretty much everything that JFK was trying to do, he swept under the rug. He is the opposite of the good person that he made out to be in the media. And that's what Martin Luther King was specifically doing when he was assassinated.
Well, Johnson was also behind, in part, he was involved in JFK assassination as well. What are these documents that everyone's asking to declass? There's more JFK documents. What do you think they're going to reveal, Austin?
They're going to reveal how our intelligence, our military, and our law enforcement was totally complicit in the murder of our president, and then totally complicit in the cover-up of it, and has been on a continuous basis since it happened. And we're going to realize, look, we need to stop letting these career professionals hide behind their resume. It's, if you've served, if you're a cop, if you're a military person, I appreciate anyone serving, but that is no longer a get out of criticism free card, right? And if they want to play that on me, it's like, dude, I got pulled into this whole nightmare circus as a child, so I feel 0% bad going straight at anybody who's like, oh, well, I served, here, oh, well, I did 20 years of that. Oh, well, I was a career law enforcement professional. Who gives a shit? If you are selling us out, if you're not calling out obvious problems, if you're allowing the people that you used to work with to run a coup against our president, then we have no use for you. We have no tolerance for your, get out of criticism free card, right? It's total BS to invoke your service in order to suppress the truth and in order to perpetuate this gangsterism, right? We're not going to stand for it anymore. And that was one of the things I hated most about John McCain. It's one of the reasons why I don't do it. Is he would go around and he would, act all like puff his chest out and be like, "Oh, well, you have to do it you haven't served like I served," and blah, blah, blah. And I hate that. It's so annoying. Like, anybody that does that is super annoying. So I try not to do that. But it's like, dude, no one can say they've served more than I have at this point in their life, right? I got recruited as a kid. I got sent to a dangerous country, a dangerous hostile foreign country as a kid, and so that's a total BS excuse. And even if it wasn't, like, we need to stop letting them use their resumes to silence dissent. That is total BS, and we're done with it, right?
But they're also hiding. But they're also hiding behind, classified, titles. They're hiding behind, top secret. They're hiding behind confidentiality laws and rules.
Yep.
It's like they have the perfect crime. They have the perfect crime. They can commit a crime, and then they have the laws to protect them from anyone finding out about it, because they can mark it classified. So all this secrecy that's repugnant in a free society is still perpetuated, and they're using this secrecy and this announced need for increased security is going to be seized upon by those who wish to exploit it and who wish to expand its meaning. Isn't that correct?
Yep, and I would like to take today to draw a line in the sand and say, now that we know Durham is definitely coming with indictments, if you are a federal law enforcement officer, if you are a CIA agent, you have 30 days, exactly 30 days from today, to come out and to get on the record and state that exactly what's going on and exactly how wrong this is. Otherwise, when I get back in the office, I'm going to end your career forever. You will not work in law enforcement. You will not work in intelligence ever again if you do not have the balls to come out and to call this nakedly fraudulent coup against our president of the United States a coup, and to help guide people in the right direction. If you don't have the courage or the integrity to do that, then we have no use for you moving forward. I don't care how much good work you've done. I don't care how many bad guys you've gotten. If you do not have the character or the integrity to protect the United States when we need it most, then you're going to be out. And I will feel 0% bad about coming in and firing thousands of people if that's what needs to happen. You have 30 days to come out, and if you don't, you get what's coming to you. Sorry. That's how it has to be.
Yeah, why not? Why not come out? I mean, look, we're willing to put our life and integrity on the line here. Why are these people not stepping up to the plate, and the oath takers, the people who took oaths to protect and defend our country and the Constitution, and they're committing treason against it, like Dianne Feinstein and so forth. Aaron, what do you make of all of this at this point?
Well, and that's just how Austin's saying it. So from my perspective, if I've always heard this, well, there's good people in the FBI.
Whoa, your internet just froze up, my friend.
Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, okay. Your video's a little
can you repeat that, Aaron, if you could, because we didn't catch that.
Okay, I was just saying that, I like you had mentioned, I hear that, people say there are good people within the FBI and within the CIA and things like that. And what Austin's telling you is now is the time. If you truly have been somebody that's just been sitting by complacently watching and being complicit in all of this, you're being given a golden opportunity. Now is the time to stand up, because I understand that if you were in this for a long time and you would have felt, well, what can I do? I'm just going to end up getting suicided if I come out. Now is the time, because it's either that or you're going to go down as being just as much a part of the problem as this. Yeah. And I hope you get fired and you work for, flipping burgers the rest of your life, because you do not deserve to serve this country. It's so pathetic to me. I cannot believe that our founding fathers, they were all about give me liberty or give me death. And here I am putting my life and my family's lives on the line by coming out so hard and so strong in Austin's corner with this, that I know that anything could happen to me, but it is so worth it to me that there is a potential that my children could live in a peaceful world as a result of me giving up my life. And I'm willing to do that. So where are the career professionals who swore to defend this country and swore to protect us, who are just sitting by while all this is going on? When they have the information, they could be exposing this as well and saying, yeah, Austin's right. Here's all the evidence that I've got of what has happened since I've been in FBI or CIA for 20 years. Come out now and show us.
Yeah, there's once you realize that the way things are going right now, if it doesn't change, if you don't have the courage to stand up and fight like our ancestors did, like they did in the Revolutionary War, and I'm a daughter of the American Revolution, so my family has fought since they've been here from the beginning. Yes, I'm also Cherokee Indian, but our children are going to have no future. It's our responsibility right now to fix this. This is it. It will be gone after us. This is the last generation that this can continue, because it will be a completely different society. They will not even know what animals are, because they're all going extinct. They're dying. And what's going to be left? You can hardly find a rhino or a giraffe in a zoo anymore. I mean, everything, this is terrible. This is terrible. Right? The oceans are completely polluted. Fukushima, you should see the fish coming up on the West Coast. Please don't eat it. But I mean, if you realize, once, just as the Q posts have said, we have no choice. You have to be willing to fight right now, because we're about to lose it. And of course, Austin, you would agree that actually when they shot Kennedy, that was the coup d'etat. And they're trying another coup d'etat right now with Trump, because Trump's trying to do the same thing. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, Kennedy was kind of an insider. His family had a lot of connections to organized crime. They were pretty successful. So he understood how this worked, and he was trying to make some dramatic changes and to root this out. Because it's at its core, it's a foreign conspiracy. We don't like to believe that, but we have been taken over by these vicious foreign royals. And until we realize that, it's not just House of Cards, right? We're also watching Game of Thrones too. And that's kind of the things that amped me up, is I always thought we were watching House of Cards. And I realized that, oh my gosh, this is Game of Thrones. They will kill, rape, murder, do whatever needs to happen for their power. They do not care about us at all. It does not matter how many people die. We will just be like human cannon fodder to them. And we need to see that, right? And I think that's one of the things as Americans, in helping get this going, one of the things that helps unite Americans is realizing that we're being attacked by a foreign enemy. And that's essentially what this is. The FBI, the CIA, the Air Force, the Federal Reserve, and a laundry list of other things, they are agents of a hostile foreign power that are engaging in this covert warfare against us. And we need to respond. We need to stop pretending that this is legitimate. We need to stop pretending that they're following the rules, or that they have any legitimate authority over us whatsoever. And until we do, they're just going to keep taking advantage of our passivity and keep right on rolling, gangbanging, killing, kidnapping, raping, murdering, doing whatever they want, starting wars, wasting all of our money, destroying our planet, destroying our country, destroying our rights, and they're actually going after our free will now as well. It's not even just all those other things. It's like they physically want to control our minds directly, not even just through this indirect propaganda that they've had. And we need to realize, look, they're knocking on the door of making this happen. And so we either beat them to that and we kind of save ourselves, we stand up and we save ourselves, or our free will will be gone forever. Our children will be mind-controlled little robots that will live in a world where if they step 1 inch out of line, they will be just as much of cannon fodder as anybody else. And even if they don't, they still might get kidnapped, and they still might have some horrible things happen to them.
Austin, how can you be sure that this new Starlink is not part of the control mechanism or will be hijacked? How can you be sure of that?
By controlling it personally.
Okay.
That's the only way I would agree to do this. All right, I'm watching it, and if you guys are screwing around, we're not doing that anymore. And that's the only way. And I hate doing that, right? Because I feel like that's almost like inserting myself like into that power structure. But I was so scared about losing my freedom that I felt if I didn't take these dramatic steps and essentially bang down the door and dive on this fumbled football myself and hold it myself, that who knows what's going to happen. There's no guarantees, right? So that's, I'm going to try to be as open with all of you guys as possible, and I'm going to be controlling that internet. So hopefully I can keep the military in line and you guys can keep me in line. And that's kind of how we're going to try to make things work in the future. And I'm hoping that if I can show you guys how to leverage the power of the crowd to make things happen, how to get to the truth quickly, how to kind of move the needle on some of these political issues, that you guys will actually be a viable force for accountability as far as like, I'm giving you the facts, and if I start to BS you, then you guys got to get me out of there quickly, right? You won't have much time, but I'm trying to show you this mechanism of like, if you leverage the power of the crowd correctly, you can exercise accountability as the people on the powerful. And so we're going to try to both, it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take you guys paying attention and keeping me in line, right? Because one of my greatest fears even is I've seen all these people that pretend to be good intentioned people that go in there that actually get their hands on the power, and they turn into psychotic megalomaniacs.
Right.
So I'm hoping that you guys will not ever let me. I never want to be like that. I'm going to try as hard as I can never be like that. But I need you guys to be keeping an eye on me and making sure that that doesn't happen, because I don't,
I appreciate the comments.
Get in there, you never know.
Okay, look. We're heading towards a very strange time ahead. When the dust settles, they're trying to corral everybody into a digital system, into a let's say the blockchain system. Do we have anything to worry about that? Everything's revealed. There's no secrecy. They're trying to get rid of cash. Is that right?
Well, it would be nice if we could move to digital currencies, and not even necessarily like people are thinking it's a one world digital currency. I would like there to be an ecosystem of currencies. I would like there to decentralize everything as much as possible, right? And not ever be putting all of our eggs back into one basket again. That way, that if somebody takes that basket, they just have all of us by the cojones.
Yeah.
I would like, my goal is going to be helping everyone be as self-sufficient and decentralized as possible. Okay. And that's one of the things I personally value a lot. So hopefully if we really, take this seriously, right, this transition, we're moving from the nuclear age into the quantum age. And if we can get the quantum age off rolling on a solid foundation of as decentralized as possible, as secure as possible, right, of different people doing different stuff, of maybe localizing our economies more than globalizing them, then we can really do a lot to help. I mean, we can't for sure guarantee, but we can do a lot to help give our kids a solid foundation to make sure this never happens again.
How to Ripple,
and that one person can't come in and just take everything.
I understand. How do Ripple and Bitcoin fit into this?
Ripple is going to be replacing, or XRPs are going to be replacing SWIFT. So we have this really antiquated money-moving wire transfer network called SWIFT, and it's the reason why if you get a paycheck, your paycheck takes days to clear into your account.
Yep.
The banks use that to essentially take your money and hold it for a few days and loan it out themselves, which should be illegal, but it's not yet. But this will allow us to have instantaneous money transfers and be shaking out some of the corruption in our banking system, right? Because that SWIFT has kind of had everybody on the ball for a long time.
That's right. But where does Bitcoin fit in then?
Bitcoin is going to be one of the systems of currency that is not fiat, right? That you can't just be printing an unlimited amount more of this stuff. That operates on a semi-decentralized basis. That we just don't want all our eggs in one basket, and Bitcoin's going to help provide things of tangible value to people, kind of like I compare it to real estate now, right? Real estate, my grandfather always had this thing that like real estate is the only real thing that you can count on over the long term, right? Because land isn't going anywhere. Yeah. Money is going to be devalued. Company stocks are going to go up and down. All these other instruments of wealth that we have, they carry a high degree of uncertainty and unfavorability to the common person. So what some of these digital currencies are going to be doing is not allowing these racketeers who rule us just to be devaluing all of our assets on an unlimited basis, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of the, so you had this, right. Our children will have no future if we all don't realize it's every one of our responsibilities to do this. So I really appreciate Austin trying to really kind of forge the way here. I mean, you're a real pioneer, Austin. There's hardly anybody like you, quite honestly. I think we've all done our part. Of course, you know, Steve, we've been doing this for what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
And you know, of course, you know, Aaron's with us. We have Audrey with us too. And there's a lot of other people doing this. I mean, a lot of people started their channels with when Q first, you know, when the Q drop started. But where do you see this going? I mean, you had this drip nurture strategy that you were working on. And quite honestly, I'm really glad that you came out because, you know, look, when I would do my POTUS reports, I would always try to put the news of the world that was happening in the perspective of Q. I would often have some disagreements with my co-host, who is a great truther, Jim Fetzer, who's also being, you know, persecuted through the court system for his editing his books on Sandy Hook, on JFK assassination, and Charlottesville, Las Vegas, you name it. And but there were some things that we would disagree on. Iran was the big one. And the funny thing was I would always put my Q glasses on and I'd say, Jim, you have to look at it. Not just Jim. I mean, whoever I was talking, you know, the audience, we have to look at this through the eyes of Q, because it didn't make any sense for the president to go around the world, create peace with North Korea, create peace and negotiate new deals with Saudi Arabia and all these other countries, and then go bomb you know, Iran with a nuclear weapon. Like, that makes no sense at all. But you have to understand that there's deep state in every country. And we're trying, you know, what draining the swamp is about. It's not just about DC. That's just where the cesspool is. But the swamp is everywhere. And, you know, we can't, because you said it's a huge global organization. The trafficking of children, you know, isn't just within our borders. It's international. So this was, I guess one of the things that I'm trying to say is you have to look at this, you know, through the eyes of Q, and it had a purpose. I did feel it was getting a little stagnant because the messages were pretty much the same. And since this operation is taking a very long time, you know, these indictments and, you know, a very long time, I would say, you know, for those of us who are awake, it's like painfully slow, but it has to take its, you know, it has to take whatever time it has to take. People are impatient. We understand that. But most people understand that we have to trust the plan as it says. So where do you see, you know, I mean, I originally thought Q was only supposed to be like a 3-year kind of operation. So is this why you're coming out? Is this going to wind down? How do you see, you know, is this basically the wind down of the whole operation? Because it's still posting, so.
I would say it's the wind up, right? So there's lots of people out there that are various career professionals, various reporters, various researchers, that everybody kind of comes at this from their own point of view, right? So I'm trying to emulate the behavior that, look, my name is Austin Steinbart. Here's the view I'm coming at it from, and I'm coming out and I'm saying, here's what it is, and this is totally unacceptable. And so I'm hoping that we could be turning the heat up on some of these FBI agents, on some of these military officials, on some of these CIA guys. Like, if you want to identify yourself as part of the good team, you need to come out now, and this is your last chance, essentially. And it's not just the career professionals, but everybody, right? I have not confirmed this personally yet, but I've been hearing that the guy who made the Out of Shadows documentary is trying to get in touch and join Team Austin. If that's the case, you know, if he's listening, absolutely feel free. We could use as many people on board as possible, but I think, you know, I go around, we'll do an interview with Matt Couch, we'll go an interview with, you know, you guys at GoldFish, more people that start, you know, being brave enough to put their name out there to talk about it, and to say, look, this is real. This is not some, you know, batshit right-wing conspiracy. This is 100% real, and this is 100% happening. Then I think just, you know, that we embolden people, and they can see, like, I've had a lot of things happening to me, negative consequences as a result of my speaking out. And so I'm hoping that the more people that come out and do this with me, we can kind of be deflecting, right? They can't get all of us at once. That's so right. I'm showing them that, like, I'll take as much abuse as much viciousness, as much violence as it needs to take to make this happen. And I'm hoping to kind of show everybody, like, if we're brave, if we just walk straight out this, we can win, right? And kind of the way, like Navy SEALs, I'll give you an example. Like, people think, oh, these guys like do all this magic. They, have all this crazy training, all these crazy gadgets. But the thing that makes them the most lethal is the fact that they're just fearless, right? They move straight at the target and they shoot straight and they just keep shooting until it's dead, right? And it's not necessarily that they got all these crazy plans or they got all this crazy whatever. It's that they move as a team and they go straight at the target and they don't stop until it's dead. And when you do that, you can blow through some very formidable problems very quickly.
Someone from Australia is asking, what can you tell them about, and since Steve is native Australian, what can you tell us about what's going on in Australia? And is there some serious swamp draining being done there as well?
Australia is definitely part of the Anglosphere, and the Anglosphere I put as under, Queen Satan's reign. So Australia is one of the places that was used to help facilitate this coup against the United States of America, right? The Australian spies, they answer to Queen Elizabeth, right? People don't realize that the Prime Minister of Australia is just a puppet, right? Queen Elizabeth is who's actually the head of state of Australia. She is who's actually the commander-in-chief of Australia's military.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be helping wake them up and helping unseat these vicious royals that, in my mind, have no claim to Australia whatsoever. And if they're listening, you have no claim to Australia. We're going to kick you out, and we're going to be returning power to the Australian people. It's totally preposterous that Australia would be ruled by these royals that live about as far away as you can possibly be and be on the same planet as you, right? That is crazy. So it's one of those things that, especially in the Anglosphere, we're going to be gunning for them hard, especially in Europe, where they control the thrones of, the Netherlands, of Belgium, where the EU is. We need them all out of here, right? And if the king of Belgium can just kill any one of those EU diplomats at any time because he's a king and he has or a queen and they have no rules, then that's problematic, right? You're gonna put the entire government of Europe under the control of these vicious royals that could just tee off on anybody at any time, that could just spy on anybody at any time, and pretend like that's ever going to net you a system that's going to be democratic or fair, right? It's just not. So we just gotta get rid of, especially this House Coburn in Saxe-Gotha, and we don't just gotta try them, we gotta kill all of them, because, and I know that sounds hardcore, but like, this is a Game of Thrones, and if we don't eradicate their bloodlines, then their bloodlines, 3 generations down the road can raise an army and come back and try to take it back from us.
Well, that's what they're doing to us, though.
They need to be gone.
They're doing that to us. They're doing that to us. They're trying to eradicate us. Isn't that right?
Yep,
so
exactly.
isn't it fair to fight for survival here? What about Canada? How does Canada fit into the picture?
Canada's the same thing as Australia, right? So Canada is also the commander-in-chief of Canada, the person who controls Canada's military. It's not Justin Trudeau, it's actually Queen Elizabeth. Yeah. So we got these countries all around the world, whether directly or indirectly, even Belize. So Belize and Jamaica, the person who is the commander-in-chief of their military is Queen Elizabeth, right? Who's like, it's preposterous. And it's this colonialism that they pretend isn't happening. And so they have it directly over Jamaica and Belize, but they have it indirectly with, like, I want to say 53 other countries throughout the world through this thing called the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth is like, oh, well, we technically don't control your military, but we've infiltrated you with spies at every level, and we, like, essentially leech off your natural resources and loot you dry, right? So we don't necessarily need to own you. We just own all of your stuff. And it's this quasi-colonial imperialism that needs to end, right? It's a ruthless, monolithic conspiracy that operates on a global scale that needs to be aggressively eradicated on a global scale.
Okay, well, either we're not going to do that individually ourselves. What about who's our army? Who's going to be doing this? Who's going to be doing this? Is it going to be the military that swore to protect and defend our country from enemies foreign and domestic?
It's the people of the world are going to help us convince the people of America to roll on our government, right? Because it's kind of got to start here the way we're set up. We're going to be getting these vicious racketeers out of here, and we're going to then turn around and launch this Space Force Internet that's secured with these airtight Internet bills of rights, and then that will allow the rest of the people of the world to kind of help focus our efforts on problems that they need solved, and help them kind of build their own government in the way they see fit, and that they need to address their issues, right? So it's not necessarily like we're going to roll the troops into every single country. It's that we're going to overthrow the government of the United States, and then we're going to use the security that we create here to facilitate that security and that freedom for people around the world. And obviously, if there's people like these awful royals, then I can't say that we won't send some JSOCs to go off them, right? Because that's what they deserve. It's case by case basis. But for the most part, the individuals of the countries in question are going to be the ones actually rebuilding their own government, right? Because I have no desire to be a king of the world. I have a desire to be a military commander of the United States. And obviously we want to be promoting freedom around the world. But it's one of those things. I do not personally have the mental bandwidth to go understand every place, every kind of person, all the problems that they have on a federal, state, local level. So it's really going to be trying to teach the people that, look, we're showing them that this is possible in the United States, and then we're kind of like empowering them to do the same in their own country, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, but it's all a matter of awareness, isn't it? I mean, people aren't going to do anything unless they really understand what's happened and what they need to do to repair it. So, I mean, look, we talked about Nuremberg-style trials. I'm hoping that's going to happen. Louisa and I are doing our bit to get the message out. You're doing a huge bit, so let's continue. But I'm just concerned that things are taking so long, that because of the awakening appears to be so slow. Maybe it's not. Maybe your positivity is correct, that it is happening much faster than I'm aware of. But I just see that I don't know. We do what we can. That's all I'm saying.
Well, on that regard, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I can say there's a dramatic political realignment happening here in the United States.
Okay.
And I can't say this is the most recent video. I would say it was yesterday or today on Jimmy Dore's channel. They released a video kind of like talking about how bad the Democratic establishment is. And they made this like cryptic reference at the end to the Joker movies and about how, people are driven to extremes by extreme circumstances, this and that. So in my mind, I can't say for sure, but to me, that seems like we're starting to get on board with them and starting to kind of like speak their language and kind of starting to attract them to our way of thinking about things. Because the truth is, like, and I always tell my lefties friend this, look, this is a lot of your ideas, right? Corrupt CIA, racket wars, uniparty government, right? I, growing up, heard a lot of these ideas from lefties. So now that we're calling it red pills, you just are kind of like reflexively dismissing it. But like, you guys like a lot of these ideas. What happened? Did Trump break your brain? Right? Like, I get that you hate Trump, but like, this is all the stuff that you guys have been saying for a long time. All these conspiracies that you have not been able to move the needle on, that now we're coming and backing you up, and now you say you don't want it. So it's just kind of like reframing the conversation where I'm like, look, this is your issues too. And I think one of the reasons why the Q thing has been taken so long in the first place is because most of the members of the movement have treated this like this is just an American right-wing Donald Trump supporting thing, as opposed to a global, unite the left and right, get rid of the global racketeers kind of thing.
Okay.
Right. Well,
so if we can refocus our efforts on that, we'll be dramatically, I mean, it's happening behind the scenes, and the more people we can get to just be brave, to speak out, to say, look, this is my name, and this is I believe this too, and you're coming at it from this angle, the more we can really be inspiring everyone to come out of the woodworks. Because I think we get a few FBI agents, we get a few CIA agents, we get a few other people, and all of a sudden a tidal wave comes out, right? It's just takes a few cracks in the dam to eventually break it and have this just tidal wave flood everything.
Right, and you're not trying to say that everybody in the FBI is bad. Clearly, there's a lot of really good people who work for the FBI who have good intentions, and they're not aware that what the upper level directors are doing. They're not aware that they're, committing crimes. And even with CPS, let me get it straight. There's a lot of good people who have the good intention to go in because they love children. They go into counseling or psychology. They get degrees in college, and they're not quite sure what to do. And maybe their first job out of college is working for CPS. A lot of people really have good intentions going into this. I'm talking about the people who are the ringleaders. I'm talking about the people who, are the ones that are in control, the people who are in the decision makers, the ones who.
Well, it's also the underlings too, because like one of the things that kind of shocked me about with the group of people raiding my house was that a couple of the people that worked for the FBI, when they were talking to my wife, literally said, because the FBI doesn't believe me about the quantum stuff. They think that's just out there. They think I'm crazy on that. But they literally said to my wife, he's 95% right about what he's talking about. It's just that quantum stuff where he's kind of like off the deep. So they're essentially the agents, the street level SWAT agents here are acknowledging, oh, he's right. We're totally corrupt, but we don't believe him on that quantum stuff, right? So I would like to say, look, if you are one of those people who is of good conscience, it is, a lot of them do know. A lot of them do know something is up. It's not just the top. A lot of them know. And we're giving them the opportunity right now. If you are a good person, if you take your oath seriously, if you have courage, if you have integrity, now is the time to stand up. Right. And if you don't, then we can't guarantee that you'll have a job moving forward, because we can't count on you to speak out when we have these grave offenses being committed at the highest levels. Then if we can't count on you to speak out during that, then how can we count on you to speak out on some of the lower level stuff, right?
Exactly. Well, what I mean is like someone like Nate Kane, who was working for the FBI and he became a whistleblower. So he saw that, he saw what was going on and he wanted to do something. And the funny thing is, I don't know, I call what they did to you, they stoned you. They Roger stoned you, with the SWAT team and all this other stuff. And it was like, really, for using the internet? It's not like you were, telling people to pick up arms and go shoot congressmen or something. I mean, come on. It was ridiculous what they did to you. But, that's as you said, their intimidation tactic. They do want to, try to discourage people from doing what you're doing or following or listening to what you have to say. But the problem is, like you said, there's too many cracks in the dam, and it's going to break, at least for the people, for the masses. It's going to break. We're going to hit that 100th monkey sooner or later. What do you think?
Yep, and we're going to do that fastest by not allowing any more of this nuance, by not allowing people to say, oh, but, most of them are good, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, if they're not speaking out at this point in time, then they are not good people. And it doesn't matter what other good work they've done. If they are not willing to call this out here and now and demonstrate good faith to us, then I'm sorry, we need other people in there. We need them not to have, if you're not courageous enough or not intelligent enough to recognize this coup against our president and not courageous enough to stand up and speak out against it, then you do not deserve to carry a badge. And you do not deserve to be in charge of protecting us, right?
Yes.
So that's it's a hard line, but it's a necessary line, right? It's maybe there's some good agents at the FBI, but the FBI itself is a fundamentally corrupt organization that needs to be splintered into 1,000 pieces and scattered into the wind. And I plan on doing that by the end of this year.
Yep. Okay.
Audrey, let me ask Audrey or Aaron if you want to weigh in, because we're at the 2-hour mark. Audrey, Aaron, where'd you guys go? Did we lose you?
I was trying to give him an opportunity if you wanted to, but yeah, I mean, I'm totally on the same page with Austin as far as that was what I said as well, that I can't imagine being in that situation now, where I'm at in my life and not standing up, because just like Austin says, I mean, and I know you mentioned, Louisa, that yes, there are those that have stepped forward before, but what Austin's saying is that now the ones who are just as aware of people like that, that have just been sitting on this and saying, well, if I step out, I may get killed. They may hunt my family down. That's all from fear. And what Austin's asking for us to do is to be courageous, because that is the spirit of that is what defined this country at its founding, was brave men who are willing to sacrifice anything and everything for liberty, because it's not about safety. It's not about security. It's about freedom. It's about being standing up and standing strong for what you believe. And if there are good FBI agents, CIA agents, military who think they're good people at heart and they have all this information, then this is a golden opportunity. 30 days is a long time to get your stuff together and stand out and say, here I am, this is what I've got, and this is what I know. That's it. And if they don't do that, then I totally 100% agree that they should not be anywhere involved with protecting people, because they clearly do not have our interest at heart.
Yeah.
Because
So
I
no
would
more.
do anything for my kids. And if they think, if they think of us as their, wards where they're here to protect us, I would gladly give up my life for my kids. And if I was in service to my country, like Austin is, I would gladly give up my life for my country too, to do the right thing.
Well,
The
I
other
don't
thing
know.
is we have signals intelligence, right? So everyone who thinks that they're going to get off scot-free, like I know what you've seen, and I can go look up every single person, everywhere they've been, everyone they've talked to, everything they've seen. So there will be nowhere to hide for anyone who's witnessed this sort of gangsterism and not spoken out about it. There will be nowhere for you to hide unless you do this in the next 30 days. I have no problem if you are and if you are staying silent. You are a threat to our national security, and I will use all of the tools at our disposal, including signals intelligence, to nail your feet to the floor and sink you with the ship if you do not come out. Doesn't matter how much good work you've done.
Austin, look, we're heading into a turbulent time, and this is not a fear-based question in any way, shape, or form. What can you advise people to do the next months? Are the food supplies guaranteed in the States, elsewhere? Is the financial system, what do you see coming up the next months? How can people take care of themselves?
I see us trying to work our way out of the damage caused by this coronavirus. I see the G continuing this controlled fall for the global power structure to help us use their kind of counter punches at us to throw them over our hip and finish making them submit. And then I see the people, on a localized basis, deciding that like enough is enough. We're not taking this anymore, and we're going to stand up right now, and we're going to, if you're having food issues, if you're getting arrested at the park for playing with your kids, obviously there's different stuff going on different places, but I see us reaching a turning point of like, we're fed up, we're not taking this anymore, and we're not letting our government officials off with these wishy-washy BS excuses anymore. And I think if we all do that at the same time, there will be a holy fire that will rain down on all of our government's heads, and they will be forced to respond. We will not let them be pandering to their donors anymore. They will be forced to respond to the will of the people.
Okay,
well, people are being tested right now to find out what you're really made of. I mean, who are you? If we're having an identity crisis, now's the time to find out who you are and what you're made of. Is that what you're saying, Austin?
Absolutely, and it's also time to be. If you're someone that has been dealing with some very unacceptable behavior for a long time, and maybe you felt like, it's kind of gotten hopeless, now is your time to stand back up and say, you know what? We're going back at this. This has been unacceptable for a long time. I don't care if we haven't got the results we wanted in the past. We're bringing this back up, and we're fighting for the things we believe in. We're fighting for justice. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for a collective future that benefits the common person as opposed to just the royals and their oligarchs.
Great.
Right. Audrey, are you there? Did you want to come in and comment? Audrey?
He's still muted.
Okay, he may be.
He's there.
Are you there? Okay. So when you come back, Audrey, you just jump in, okay? So this is time to separate the wheat from the chaff, absolutely right now. And again, it's about, holding people accountable. It's not, I think the problem is people have become complacent. They've become indifferent. And that's probably just as criminal as the crimes that are being committed, because if you don't do anything, then you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. So I never intended on doing GoldFish Report. It's not like I sat down one day and just said, I'm going to start a report. It really evolved out of a necessity. It was a response to, quite honestly, it was a response to the tyranny that was being inflicted upon me as a mother, having my children wrongfully taken away from me because I spoke at a town hall meeting about the civil justice system, that they were denying due process rights. So I was trying to alert the public that there was something wrong, that there was no accountability in the judiciary in the state I was living in, and that somebody, needed to, but people were indifferent. Nobody cared. They didn't care, Austin, unless it happens to them. And we have to make people care again. They have to realize what's at stake. They have to realize what has happened. This coup d'etat was so incredibly successful. This infiltration by this enemy is in every facet of life. Let's look at it, right? They control the agendas in the universities. So when I was in graduate school in public policy, and we were talking about the Federal Reserve, I made the comment that it's a private organization. And I'd hardly finished my sentence, and the professor jumped in and said, well, no, that's not entirely true. And he tried to really dodge it and try to, control the narrative. So that's what they're doing. We have our propaganda media. We have the Smith-Mundt Act, which was to ban propaganda to the American citizens. And President Obama in 2012 repealed that. So propaganda is legal. These false flag operations, which Austin also commented on last time, doesn't mean people weren't killed. Just means it was to promote some other agenda. It's really what it means. Sometimes they're not, but sometimes they are. So it depends on what their agenda and their goal is. So this is the time when, everybody can do something. And like Austin is saying, if you're people who work within these agencies, they're going to probably eventually come down, and you can either be part of the solution or part of the problem, and you're going to fall down with them. So, for people who are honest, law enforcement and people who want to do the right thing, we're either going to go into a one world government, new world order, fascist, communist takeover, or you're going to have to stand up and fight for what you want this country to be. Just like we did in the Revolutionary War, just like we did in the Civil War. Those men never, shuddered for a minute to go on that battlefield and fight for this country. It's amazing. It's amazing that there's so many cowards. Have we so demasculinized the men in this country that there's no courage left? And I'm not bashing men, although I may have a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to do it. But honestly, and it's not about bashing men. It's just that people need to step up to the plate. Even women, you have to step up to the plate, fight for your families, fight for your children, and realize they're going to take them if you don't. And that's really the bottom line. Is family sacred to you? Is anything sacred to you? What is sacred to you that you're willing to fight for and you're willing to die for? Because
well, I don't think a lot of people understand what's really at stake here. That's the issue, Louisa. I think people would step up to the plate if they really understood it is life and death coming up. It's going to be a total control mechanism. You just need to look at China. What is China doing? They've got the merit system, the point system. You can't even travel if you've got the wrong points. That's what people need to understand. That's what this is about. But I think if they did, there would be much more people on the streets. I think
you're right. I want to ask Austin about China, and then I'm going to go to Audrey. Austin, what's going on in China? 20 million China mobile users are missing. What happened? Do you know?
I can't speak to this specific case, but I can say in the past during the Olympics, I will at some point. This is just ongoing. But
okay, no problem.
They, like in the Olympics, before I want to say it was 2008. I could be not getting the exact date right, but they pretty much the city it was in, Beijing, they just go in. They have a government where they could do whatever they want. So they could wave their hand and say every factory is closed for the indefinite future. Wave their hand, that's done. And then they wave their hand again. Everyone who's ever spoken up about the government, even in like a mild way, you're disappeared. You're thrown in a hole for the next 6 months until this Olympics is over. And then they, have that souped up version of like signals intelligence that they're integrating into that social credit score system. So they just have this, they're a little bit ahead of us on the track of like racing themselves towards a dystopian police state. But that's coming here, right? You see that from like, if you have these CIA-backed fronts called like Right Wing Watch or like Southern Poverty Law Center, and they decide arbitrarily that they don't like your opinion, then all of a sudden these cowardly tech giants like PayPal and like MailChimp and like whoever, they're going to come and turn you off, right?
That's it.
And even the thing like where Jared Beck, the guy suing the DNC, the Bernie supporting lefty, who recognized that they got cheated in 2016. He's a lawyer in Florida, and he went back and he sued the DNC and said this primary was never real. You took our money fraudulently by pretending that this was a real election when it wasn't. Like, and you knew that. So they even throw people like him off the internet, right? It's not that he's even like inciting or like calling for any like major change aside from like give us our right to vote. But even people like him get silenced. That's what people need to realize. It's not just the antagonistic. It's not just the fringe personalities getting silenced. It's everyone, right? And I think what the left and the right can both realize is that if you have a dissenting opinion from the foreign policy orthodoxy on the left, you're getting demonetized, throttled, and censored. If you have a dissenting opinion from the Republican orthodoxy on the right, you're getting demonetized, throttled, and censored.
Exactly.
And once we realize this is happening in both ways, then we can all get angry enough about it together to be like, enough is enough. You're defrauding us. You're crapping on our rights, and we're going to come back at you for it.
Yep. Identity politics is all crap anyway. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Steve, it's quite late there over in Europe.
Yeah,
we do appreciate you. Again, poor Steve's always up late over there because it's 6 hours ahead. So, yeah. So thanks. Do you have any final questions for Austin, Steve?
No, not really. I think we covered a lot of topics. I thank everybody here for their work and getting the message out. I think I like a lot of the ideas that are being put forward, and I hope we can realize them. I really do. Yeah. I mean, if there's anything else that we can all do, Austin, let us know. You seem to be plugged in, and So I just want to announce one thing real quick before we go, and of course I'll come back to the GoldFish Report. Love you guys a lot. So I have a team. When the FBI thing happened and they took my phone and stuff, I had a team of volunteers of ex-military people, law enforcement, creative professionals. They all kind of jumped in and started filling the gap there. And one of the guys that's working on that team that I'm not communicating via internet with in any way, I'm just using my flip phone here. He's a guy goes by the moniker of Patriot Phoenix. And what he's doing right now is he's building us a big data visualization tool. So like during the election, MIT Media Labs made this big data visualization tool to see Hillary Clinton's emails and to have like bubbles of like who she's interacting with the most and strings in between things. So just helping regular people get through this mountain of data. So we got a guy that's building us a similar tool that we're going to be using for JFK docs, for finders, and for all these major document dumps in the future, that we could be porting these documents into these massive document dumps, audio recordings, that, and having it do OCR and transcriptions to where we can have searchable, phrases, names, have the dots being kind of connected with these big data tools for us. And we can be crowdsourcing out the research of blowing through these, the government always tries to hide their dirt in all this, mountains of documents, tens of thousands of pages. So if we can be leveraging the power of the crowd to blow through those things quickly and to be surfacing the juiciest parts and the baddest dirt of what they're doing to help us further the message, that would be awesome. So he's doing that, building this awesome tool for us. We'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks. And it will, the beauty about it is like the MIT Media tool. If you wanted to, log into that and have thousands of people manipulating that at the same time using it functionally, it required a whole lot of computing power, like server power behind it. So even if you use the cheapest form of like publicly, shared cloud hosting, that was a tens of thousands of dollars a year in maintenance costs sort of a deal. Where this new tool that we're building out is going to be a decentralized thing. So it's going to be, you're going to be able to download a little piece of the program in a Docker window on your computer and be able to use the computing resources you have there locally to run the program. And what that'll do is it'll allow us to not need centralized servers and, not need to spend all that time and electricity running that, or not all that money and electricity running that. And it will also not give us any centralized point of attack where if, Amazon or Microsoft or whoever acts like a bunch of cowards and is, capitulating to the CIA's demands to take it down, we will not have any centralized point of attack like that. So there'll be no centralized server that they can just go after. We'll all have a piece of it. And so I think if we can be cultivating a crowd of researchers who's into this kind of stuff, who's going to help us surface these
groundbreaking insights, helping us fish them out of these gigantic document dumps for us, that I think we could be, really creating a system that operates moving forward, that is an effective tool moving forward for bringing transparency to governments throughout the world, not just even in the United States.
Sounds good.
So just using all of our collective power, putting it together and focusing at the same direction for long enough to be getting ourselves the tangible facts and information we need to really make the changes that we want to make. So I just want to throw that out there real quick. We'll be announcing that in the next couple of weeks. And so check us out on that.
Okay, before we go, I still have a few more minutes. I know Steve has to go, but whenever you have to, Steve. It's just Audrey is ready to jump in. Audrey, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So what I did want to say is that all of you people out there in the audience need to stop acting like followers and sheeple. You need to start acting like leaders. The leaders I know you all are. You are not followers, you are leaders. Every one of you has the potential to make a difference in your community. Every single one of you has the potential to make a difference in your country. All of you can make a difference in the world. So all of you together need to band together and work together to make change. Every one of you needs to voice your opinions. You need to start speaking to your government agencies. You need to start really working the message into this government. Again, governmentus, mind control system. It breaks down to two words. To govern is to control. Mentis, ment means mind. Yeah. Govern, that is mind control. So the thing is, the people need to see what is right in front of them. And most people don't even see what's going on in politics anymore. They just trust that the government has their best interest in hand, that these ABC organizations have their best interest at hand. CPS, FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all of these ABC organizations out there. They all believe, they've been brainwashed to believe that these are good people, when in fact they're pirates. These are big battleships, pirate ships, submarines in the virtual sea of the internet that are attacking people left and right, who are trying to get messages out through social media, through radio. Even we've suffered here at Ascension Radio a couple of times, a couple of attacks that we recovered from. But they try to attack different social media outlets and different radio outlets, alternative media, anything they can do to try to shut us down. We need to stand up strong. We need to keep pushing forward as a team. All of us, Austin, Aaron, Steve, Louisa, myself, and others that are working towards trying to change this world. People need to start looking for the answers, and we're making it easy for all of you. We are putting the answers right out there in the open for all of you to see. We're placing the facts and all of the proof and the evidence right there before your veritable eyes. So look and see and read and view and watch all of this stuff and start making a difference in your communities. Really.
The other thing that really, I was going to say, parlaying on your point there, Audrey, the other thing that really helps, that maybe not everybody feels like really helps, is the governmentists. They, as Audrey says, they like to trick all of us into believing that this is an unpopular opinion, that most people don't believe us, that most people are going to think we're crazy. Right. So even if you have 30 followers, if you just put out a little post, a little message saying like, look, I'm going out there and I've been doing, like, here's what I believe and here's why. And, I'm not scared about putting my name behind it. The more and more people that do that have, even if like there's a 45-second testimonial even, just saying, here's what I believe and here's why, and I'm not scared and I'm putting my name out there too. It helps us break through that kind of mind control mechanism of like stigma, of them making us all feel like we're the crazy ones and that they're right and that most people agree with them, because the fact is they don't. So just, even if, no matter how small you think you are, no matter how, even if you don't have a lot of time, every social media post adds up, right? And it helps us convey the bigger picture of that, like, look, this is serious stuff. Lots of people are, see the exact same thing as we do. We're not crazy. Here's the evidence. And even just like, short testimonial of like, here's who I am, here's what I believe, and here's why. All that helps tremendously. So don't ever write yourself out. Don't ever think you don't have enough followers. Don't ever think you can't make a difference, no matter how small that difference may be.
Yeah, and here's one whistleblower who paid again, with his life. Oops, wait a second. Hold on. Ugh, freaking thing. Hold on 1 second. I didn't have my 1 second, guys. Okay, here we go. This is Bill Cooper or William Cooper, however you know him. This is just a clip that I'm going to play from him.
Cattle, they think we are. How does that make you feel? How does it make you feel? How many of you have a Freemason in your family? 30 on up know exactly what's happening and they're part of it. They'll tell you that they don't. They'll tell you that I'm a liar, okay? They can't tell you the truth because what? They've taken 30 different oaths that they will never disclose the secrets of the order. Blood oaths on penalty of death. And you say, hey, what about these oaths on penalty of death? Oh, those don't mean nothing. They're just, ceremony. How many of you believe that grown men put on robes and walk around in secret rituals in temples without windows and take blood oaths and don't mean it? How many of you believe that? And if they'll take those oaths and don't mean it, will they mean the one where they have their hand on the Bible? Of course not. They're lying to you. They are liars. Chronic liars. Ceremonies and oaths give them permission to lie if it protects the secrets of the order and tells them it's okay. Now, how clear does it have to be before somebody wakes up? How many days do we have left? See, I told you yesterday, I'm not nice to people anymore. There's no time to be nice. No time to stroke you and make you feel good. I got to wake you up quick, and I got to get you ready to fight for your freedom, or you're going to make me a slave because you won't fight with me. Or you'll make me dead because I'm the only one fighting. I don't like those odds, but whether you're with me or not, I'm going to fight. Cattle,
that's
they think
it.
we are.
I mean,
How's
that's
that?
exactly what you're summing up here, Austin. That's exactly what you're saying. Were you able to hear that, Austin?
Yeah, that was a great clip. That is exactly essentially what we're saying. I would say, do try to be nice, right? Because if you're not nice, then people are going to reflexively kind of like bounce back. But try to be nice, but have a sense of urgency, right? And say, look, this is dead serious, and we have a very unique opportunity over the next, up into the run-up of the election. We have a very unique opportunity here to put some very powerful forces of the people together and really make this change, if we so choose.
All right, folks. If there's nothing that really can motivate you, let me just see, Austin or Aaron. I'm sorry. Aaron, you all face in your name, Aaron or Audrey. Let me go back to Aaron. Aaron, do you want to jump in? Do you have a comment or something or suggestion?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, my heart is in this from the same position with all of this. That, I mean, I understand Austin's where he's coming from, saying to be nice to people, whereas Bill Cooper, he's like, I don't got time for that. But the sense of urgency doesn't have to come across where we're being angry about this, and that if people don't get it, that we've got to strangle them till they get it. But I just think that when people see that you're being genuine and that where your heart is, and that when I explain to people that I'm literally willing to give up my life for this because my kids' lives and their future is on the line, that resonates with people, and they definitely, they get it at a certain level in their heart. They know that they've been a slave their whole life. It's just that maybe, and like Austin says, more people than not actually do see this. It's just that we felt powerless for so long. And Austin's offering up a golden opportunity to be able to get people together with how we're structuring things. If you're able to offer, if you have any skills, any particular talents with video stuff or researching things. So, I mean, the JFK documents, for example, they're something like 55 gigabytes worth of data that for two people to go through is just going to take too long. But if we have 1,000 people that can go through it, it might take us 2 days. You know what I mean? So it's all about offering up what you can right now. Now is the time. And it's the same thing like what we're calling out with the corrupt FBI and stuff. If there's good people in there, now is your time as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, everybody can do something. I mean, even after my first channel, YouTube, my original channel was deleted, millions of views, my first 200 reports gone. It didn't go anywhere. I mean, I created another blog. They deleted 3 blogs of mine as well, never restored them. I didn't, curl my tail under between my legs and, walk into the corner. I'm just like, oh, really? Well, I'm going to show you what I've got. Well, it's like, another blog, White House press credentials, 3 more blogs, Twitter, Facebook. It's like you've got to get your ammunition. You've got to fight back however you can. And I think that's a great way to do it. Austin, there has been some other document dumps besides your Amorphous, and there has been some by other people who Q actually mentioned on the board. And I'm not going to bring up their name just now, or his name was posted. And he did have a whole lot of documents. And unfortunately, that was one of the reasons they deleted my blog, was because some of them, well, I published. And they were documents like from GCHQ that showed that Susan Rice was directing them to extend the investigation, MI6 to extend the investigation into surveilling Donald Trump at Trump Tower, and that it was by the direct order of the president, of Barack Obama. So these were the documents that were among those documents. These are the documents that people have to take time. These are WikiLeaks documents. Now, Austin, you said you had a hold of some of these WikiLeaks documents. In fact, I had published that Vault 7, and it was probably soon after that, not the whole thing. Actually, it was like done in 8 parts or something like that. And, they ended up deleting my blog. WordPress did that, by the way. So they all censor us. I hope that the Justice Department is also working on that, because this is such a huge monster. And you talked about the Internet Bill of Rights, which I've been advocating for, to much disagreement to some of the viewers, but we do need something, don't we?
Yeah, our freedom of speech will not continue without an Internet Bill of Rights. Like, you've already seen how much it's being crapped on now. Like, it will be totally snuffed out by the time we have another president if we don't demand it right now.
Yeah, and what should that include? What kind of Bill of Rights should that include? What do you think should be included in it?
Kind of the basic premise of it is that, the phone company can't turn off your phone because they don't like what you're saying to other people. The power company can't turn off your power because they don't like how you're using your power, right? They're a public utility. We allow them to operate at nearly a monopoly scale because they provide us a public utility. And if they're not going to be providing us that public utility, then we should not be allowing them to operate a monopoly scale, right?
Exactly.
And so it's one of those things. Free speech is not optional in the United States. And social media is how we exercise our free speech in 2020. So if they are not going to give us free speech, then we're not going to give them the economic power and leverage over us that they've had in the past. We're going to castrate them with an Internet Bill of Rights, and we're going to take control of the internet and say, look, if you guys don't want to play by the rules of America, the hard established core founding principles of America, then we are not going to let you just have free range of the internet anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to start fighting back.
We are fighting for our constitutional rights, folks. We're fighting for America. You have to understand that that's what we're doing. We're fighting for what, and please don't say unalienable, because nobody knows what that means. It's unalienable. You can't have something taken away without due process. That's what it means. Unalienable. You can't put a lien against somebody's property without due process. So,
yep. So the other thing I want to throw out there real quick on that note is that my lawyer said if I had organized a physical protest against Dado and gone and stood on the sidewalk outside of their offices and said the exact same thing I did in that YouTube video, that there is nothing the FBI could have done to prosecute me whatsoever. That the only reason they could prosecute me is because our First Amendment rights do not extend to the internet. So that's kind of the thinking there, is like, literally the exact same action done on the sidewalk and done on the internet could net you entirely different results. One is completely protected, and one could get you thrown in federal prison indefinitely. So that's a huge reason of why we need an Internet Bill of Rights.
It's a communication mechanism. They regulate the radio waves. They regulate the phone wire. They regulate fiber optics. I mean, why can't they regulate the internet? Actually, the fiber optics are internet too, but why can't they internet? The cable companies are regulated. Why not the internet? Why aren't they considered a utility like all the others? Under communications, under the FCC, why aren't they doing this? Who's profiting the most by this not being regulated? obviously.
Yep,
Facebook, Google.
exactly. And I think for all of our right-wing audience, they hear regulation and they kind of cringe. And what they got to understand is we are not regulating in the sense of like we are limiting what is able to be done. We're regulating in the sense of we are protecting our right to say whatever we want. We are protecting our right to free speech. We're not using that regulation to choke off freedom. We're using that regulation to protect freedom. So hopefully the people who are more of a right-leaning persuasion can see that like this regulation is absolutely necessary if our freedom is going to survive.
Yeah. Austin, just out of curiosity, did your attorney actually do a habeas corpus when you were arrested?
What do you mean by that?
Well, because I guess they had to show you the evidence and the grounds that you were being when you were actually being held. At that time you were being held. They had to show you what.
Well, they showed me like a few of the documents, but I still have not even been arraigned yet. So like I haven't even been formally charged. I'm being held on house arrest. My ability to communicate for the most part has been taken away, and my ability to defend myself has been taken away. Yet they have not even charged me yet, and we have no date of when that will even be.
Yeah.
So like they also leaked those documents out into the court listening services.
Right.
Before they've even charged me or before I've even had a chance to defend myself. So it just shows you this is naked gangsterism of the FBI laid to bear for all of us to see, and it's just totally preposterous.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because Elrod versus Burns was a landmark court case in 1976, which led to a landmark decision regarding our constitutional rights and how fundamental they truly are. And in the end, in the end, it was determined that our constitutional rights are so fundamental that even if only for a moment we are denied our constitutional protections, it is automatic irreparable harm. That's how fundamental these constitutional rights have to be. And the fact that they took your not only your First Amendment, or mostly your First Amendment, but your Second Amendment right away from you, you've already been denied. You've already suffered that irreparable harm according to the landmark decision and what the implications of that are of irreparable harm.
Yep, that would be true. That would be true if it was a physical thing, but since it's on the internet, they just say, "Oh, this is a different category. We have no obligation to respect that previous precedent because this is an internet matter, not a physical real life matter." That's how they look at it. Now, they took your
weapons. They took your weapons. That's your Second Amendment right to have your guns. And so, what I'm saying is that if only for a moment your constitutional protections were taken from you, it's automatic irreparable harm, and it has to be that fundamental, or our Constitution means absolutely nothing. We have to have it has to be the most sacred of, and this is why Trump has appointed over 200 judges on the federal court, international and federal court, in order to put judges in who are going to uphold the Constitution and follow the Constitution. We, even if it kind of created the standard, if only for a moment, even if only for a moment, you're deprived your constitutional rights, it's automatic irreparable harm. That's Elrod versus Burns. It was published in the Constitutionalist, which is the North Carolina law journal. So, these are so very fundamental, folks, and you have to realize that nothing stops people from the government from abusing their power under color of law, and they have been doing it. They're doing it in the FBI. They're doing it by marking something classified, like Hillary Clinton. Actually, didn't stop her from using servers that were not marked, that were not deemed classified, right? And all that's going to come out as well. There's lots and lots and lots of those emails that are going to be rediscovered, as this article just appeared from regarding Datto, and regarding that it was I guess a New Jersey based company that she had done the contracting with, who stored it in Datto, had a backup of it or something, who stored it on a cloud. And she claims, they claimed they weren't aware that, or Datto claims they weren't aware that it was her confidential or classified documents that were actually being stored on a cloud. So now they have all those, now they have in the cloud all of those confidential classified documents, according to this one report I just read. So that's very
Yep,
interesting.
and everybody, and Datto is my vendor partner for a long time, and everybody that works for Datto knows that that is a total crock of shit that they said that they lost that backup and that they couldn't find that stuff for the CIA. And that was the reason that Hillary got such a get out of jail free card on that. Wasn't necessarily just because she was powerful. It was because she was the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State is who oversees all the stuff the CIA is doing. So pretty much the CIA, the whole CIA, had a huge interest in helping her cover all that up because her emails exposed everything they were doing. And there weren't just 33,000 of them that they lost. There were 55,000 of them that they lost.
Exactly.
And they did ridiculous stuff like that. I think when they got subpoenaed by Congress, they only turned over like 500 or so of those emails. They said everything else was irrelevant to the committee. So they're just nakedly racketeering. They're just paying CrowdStrike, paying Datto all this money to lie for them. And we got to, as the American people, say enough is enough. This doesn't pass the smell test. You're not doing this anymore. And we're fed up. No more.
Yeah, bit bleach. Anybody else? Austin, if it was anybody else, what would happen? They'd be locked up faster than your head could spin.
Absolutely.
So Aaron and Audrey, are you guys still with me? Steve had to depart because he's 6 hours ahead, so we have a time zone thing. So Aaron, why don't you come back in and see where are you standing here? I mean, look, I already told you what happened to me briefly, but we all have to realize this is what's happening. We have to realize the rabbit hole is much, much deeper and more nefarious than anybody wants to see. I think there's a part of people who are just in denial. Oh, people say, I know the government's corrupt. No, you don't know how corrupt the government is. I'm sorry, you don't. And apparently you don't want to know. So this has to start coming out drip by drip, Aaron. And I know you're doing your part, but what do you think we should? What do you think? What else can you suggest that we do, or do you have any comments?
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as definitely helping wake everybody up, but the biggest, if you look at a lot of these movements in the past, where even Austin explained that, we've been close to this point before, where people were kind of at that. Maybe like back in the 70s, where it was all about peace and love and, exposing the government. But the problem is we didn't have a direction. Like people didn't have like an avenue where they could actually feel like they're making some sort of difference in this struggle, if you want to call it this war, this information warfare, spiritual warfare. And now we do. And this is exactly what, I don't know if Austin wants to speak to how people can get involved with this, with him, particularly, or with the team around him, but there is a pretty extensive team where we're looking for people to be involved in this as much as they are able to.
Yeah, and I think people who are in the Q, movement have to realize that you can't take on the identity of Q just because you made a channel about Q. It's not your identity. You have to realize that if that's what you made your channel about, then you're going to, it's not about you. You got to understand that it's about us. It's about all of us. It's not about me. It's not about Aaron. It's not about Audrey. It's not about Steve. It's not about Austin. It's about all of us. So it doesn't matter whether, this argument about whether Austin's Q or not, like, it's so irrelevant. Like, you don't even hear the message that Austin's discussing, that Austin's talking about. So if you want to get hung up on that because you don't want to give up your title to Q, then you're gonna be left in the wind, because we have to keep moving forward. So put all of that behind you, because that's not productive. That's being part of the problem, not part of the solution. So moving forward, the very next thing, I could tell you the GoldFish Report's been working on this very hard, very long, and I appreciate Aaron doing this as well. And Austin, you're a freaking powerhouse. I mean, you're holding yourself together. You're so knowledgeable on these things in a way that, I think most people your age you blow people away. I think I'm extremely impressed with your command of the issues and the depth of the issues that you have, Austin. So I have to say, you just blew me away today. You really did.
Well, I appreciate the love, and I appreciate you bringing up the fact that, it's not necessarily about me. It's about making this stuff happen for all of us. That's really the ultimate goal here, right? And I told people on the Matt Couch interview, like, look, we gotta use the power of our movement to be providing air support to the president and to the change that we're trying to create, right? So even if you hate the guy that's shining the laser on the target for the airstrike to be called in, hopefully you could agree that that is a worthy target that needs to be airstriked and be helping us participate in that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So look, Audrey and Aaron, why don't you, jump in and if you have any final questions, if not, we can start to wrap this up. Audrey, are you still with us?
Well, I'm ready for a wrap whenever you guys are.
Okay. Aaron, how about you?
Yeah. I think actually I'll be doing another interview with Austin later on my channel. I'm not sure if we're still scheduled for that today or not, but
Yep, we're going to be doing another one on the Q signal tonight. I had, like I said, an incident at my house last night. I'm not going to get too much into the details, but just had to postpone that with Aaron from last night. So we're going to be holding that tonight, and just keeping the movement going. And I appreciate the platform here at GoldFish Report. Louisa and Steve is some great hosts, and we'll have to come back in the near future and keep the conversation going.
Keep it going best that we can. Austin, I think we're all on the same page. I think we want a better future for our kids, even for ourselves, but we certainly don't want our kids to be facing what we're facing right now, the kind of tyranny that is on our doorstep and inside our homes for many of us. So Austin, you're just a powerhouse. I'm very impressed. I'm so glad you came back. Thank you so much. We were worried about you. We were worried about you after we heard about the arrest, and it was quiet, and I know you lost your equipment and all this other stuff, but hey, at least you get to enter all that into evidence now. Yeah.
Yep. And we'll beat them in court once we get to court. Obviously court's pretty backed up right now. Appreciate the love and support, and we're gonna, I'm not scared of the FBI. I'm not scared of the CIA. I'm not scared of any of these people anymore. And we are going to charge straight forward, and we're going to shoot straight, and we're going to neutralize this threat before it neutralizes us. And, hopefully as many people as possible will join us on that journey.
Yeah, people, you have to move forward with no fear. You can't let fear make your decisions for you. You can't let fear, in terms of your strategy in life, don't let fear do that to you, because we're so much more. We deserve so much more than, allowing fear to limit what we do. But you have to realize, right now is the time to separate the men from the boys, really, and realize that it's time to, step up to the plate and fight for what you hold to be, true and of value, whatever your principles are in terms of America, because we're really fighting for that right now. We're about to lose it, as you can see by what's happening in Congress. So, all right, Austin, thank you so much. I just want to check with our live chat here to see if anybody had any other questions. I wasn't intending to ignore you. I was pulling some questions from the live chat.
So maybe we can get those questions and we can have that in an interview next week, just so I can have a chance to grab a bite to eat here in between interviews. But I fully intend on answering everyone's questions. If you're listening and you didn't get your question answered today, please feel free to send that to Louisa, and we'll cover that in another session.
Okay, sounds good. Austin, thank you so much, and to your wonderful wife. I send you both prayers of protection, both of you, and support, and also you too, Aaron, and your family as well, Audrey's family and Steve's, of course. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for viewing. If you're viewing from Ascension Radio, thank you for viewing on the radio. Thank you to our live chat and all the people who are going to view after the recording is uploaded. So have a great night, everybody. Austin, thank you, everybody. Peace. And this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.